Board of Commissioners staff Zoom meeting for, I guess it'll be a Zoom / in-person for Thursday, April 30th, 2020. This meeting is subject to the Nebraska Open Meetings Act, which you can find a copy of at the back of on the wall in the back of the room of 112 and 113. Additionally, if you want to review the Open Meetings Act, you can find it at aog.nebraska.gov/open-meetings. That's aog.nebraska.gov/open-meetings. Or you can find it in statute and state statute 84-1401 through 84-1414. So the first item up is approval of the staff meeting minutes for April 23rd.
I will move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Please call the roll.
Rick,
Yes.
Roma,
Yes.
Deb,
Yes.
Krista,
Yes.
Sean.
Yes.
5-0 motion carries.
Very good. Next up is legislative update with Joan Brennan.
Good morning, commissioners, and thank you for the opportunity to join you virtually this morning, virtually in person. Just a couple things. I think we were talking kind of offline initially, a little bit about kind of what we are hearing with regards to return of the legislature. There's all kinds of concepts out there that people are hearing, but I think the reality is that if you look at the timelines with regards to when we're going to see some real numbers with regards to the impact of the COVID-19 crisis in Nebraska, the pandemic and its effect on the economy, I think the reality is that I would be very, very surprised if we see anything before mid to late July. I only say that based on two factors. One, I think we will see by June 10th is when we will see some of those sales tax numbers come in and be certified. And over the course of the last couple of months, the 2 months prior to that. And then secondly, if you look at the delay on income tax, that you're going to have a better picture of what was paid on that July 15th date. If everybody recalls, normally in about 10 days to 2 weeks after the deadline for the payment of income tax on a normal year, the forecasting board meets and looks at what did come in, either filings or cash, and then makes a decision on the forecast. Well, and then the legislature kind of knows in those long sessions how to adjust its budget before it takes it up on the floor for debate. I think it's important to remember we're kind of flying blind at this point on that front. And so my sense is that when they do come back, I think you're going to see, and I don't want to put words in their mouths, but certainly if I were chairman of the Appropriations Committee, I would want to know as much as possible when we come back so that we can make the right decisions on the budget versus taking quick action and then potentially having to come back in September or October in a special session to try to adjust it. So my sense is that we're still a long way from coming back. But I think, certainly the CARES Act dollars as they've been announced and come to the state, and now the guidance that's been presented has provided some additional conversations among legislators and members of the executive, some conversation going on across there. On that note, I would note that there was kind of a briefing for senators on Monday with regards to NCSL. Did a briefing for senators just kind of on what they know about the CARES Act, how it's being, what other states are looking at. So I think everybody's still kind of in this period where the money came, but then the guidance didn't come until last week. So everybody's trying to understand and have a better idea of what that guidance looks like and what it means for folks. So just on that note, I would just note, it's kind of, we're still very early in this process. And hope as we proceed that there'll be more clarity. One thing that, we have been discussing in the last 2 weeks was this request to the governor's office regarding in-person Board of Equalization hearings. I would note that we did submit that request last week, and we mentioned that at the board meeting. We got an almost immediate response from the governor's, the head of the Policy Research Office, Lauren Kittner, and his chief legal officer. And then this week we did get I did get a call from Dustin Antonello, who many of you will recall used to represent LIBA. He now works in the governor's Policy Research Office and was tasked with looking at this on behalf of the governor's office. One thing that did come back was from them, and no final decision has been made, but he did relay that they are working with the property tax administrator as well as the Department of Revenue to provide guidance to counties on this issue of in-person Board of Equalization protests. There seem to be, and these are my words, not his, but there seemed to be a willingness to go to what something similar to what we're doing here, but there was some concern about strictly limiting it to telephonic. No decisions have been made. I did reach out following that, and I did include a little bit of that with today's report. I did reach out to Sean Kelly right afterwards to see if he had gotten had a similar conversation with the governor's office. That he had not received that yet, and as of yesterday morning still had not, and I didn't hear anything back from him yesterday afternoon. So just keeping you filled in. I don't think there's a final decision yet here, but just wanted to keep you abreast of how that is moving along. We've also included in our report the list of those interim studies that we have talked about. As I looked at that, I remembered, Commissioner Vest, you sent me an email, and I didn't. I apologize. Really, just by way of reminder to everybody, interim studies are a vehicle by which the legislature can take a deeper look at specific issues. They are not necessarily, do they have to be scheduled for a public hearing? And in fact, last year we saw a little bit of the process that we followed on LR 183, where there was no hearing, but there was 5 or 6 meetings during the interim on that issue. So these kind of morph, and they're kind of, each one is kind of their own way to kind of look at those, take a deeper dive in those issues. But again, it presumes an interim, right? And so it really is going to come down to how much time is there for the legislature to spend doing those deep dives in between the 2 sessions. So with that, I will try to answer any questions that y'all might have.
You're muted.
Commissioner Shore, you're muted.
We are still working that the decision or our request would just impact Douglas and Sarpy, correct?
You mean on the BOE process?
Yes, on the BOE.
The statute as it reads says that these processes for in-person are between any county over 150,000. So my understanding is that that's Douglas and Lancaster at this time. I do not believe that implicates Sarpy at this time.
Okay.
I mean, are we? I just at this point, I was hopeful 10 days ago. Now I'm sort of the opinion that we should maybe almost just be happy with the option of telephonic rather than mandating losing in-person ones. So I can't see the governor. I mean, the governor wants to open things back up. That's been the messaging that we've seen for 2 weeks now. I just can't see him going, making a decision that's going to go against the very messaging that he's been promoting. And well, so I'm almost tempted to take what we got now and try to not make it worse.
I think it'd be, Commissioner, I think if the board is comfortable, I'd like to reach just kind of back out to Sean and kind of see where they're at on this. And I mean, he and I have been communicating back and forth through this process. And I know that Douglas's position, their hope and having, been in the courthouse when I watched their process, it is very much kind of, you are booked into a small room. I mean, it is a smaller room. We're on the first floor of the Douglas County Omaha Civic Center. It is tables. I mean, I have seen it. I can understand their concern about that. But then when I read kind of what our process is, I think we're kind of comparing my perspective, not anybody else's, apples and oranges a little bit. Because I think that I think we have a little bit bigger area where we're typically able to do it. So Commissioner, I understand it. And I think this is I think at the end of the day, it's about a health and safety issue. And so I think it's fair to make the request. I think what we probably need to do is see where Douglas is at on this process and then and jointly kind of make our decision. I mean, that would be my recommendation.
I'm happy if you want to reach out to them. Everybody else?
Well, I think we can encourage the Zoom or whatever mechanism we use to decrease the in-person traffic as much as possible.
Mm-hmm.
But are we still going to be able to use the Lancaster Event Center as a place for the meetings to take place?
My understanding is that they are looking at other locations now because the meetings are about the same time as the rodeo.
Oh, yeah.
The rodeo displaced those. So I think they're actually looking at the IBEW hall. I don't know that I don't know that for a fact, but yeah, no, that's a nice big space, and I think they're in discussions with that. So
okay.
Sorry, major dog issues. Leslie, you're nodding your head. Is that correct? Oh, and there's Corey too. Okay.
Tentatively, we've got IBEW unless they change their mind. So
great. So, and that's a big space, but it's not. I mean, it's not miles. It's not. I imagine people would still be cramped in there pretty good. So.
Yeah, we would have to strategically schedule, but it would be an option. So. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, Joe, I think please reach out to Douglas County and see what they're thinking. I don't really have any of their better ideas.
Okay.
Anything else? All right. Very good. Thanks for being with us.
Hey, thanks a lot. Thanks for the offer. Be well, everybody. Stay safe.
Okay, next up is the county clerk's centralized payroll staffing needs with Corey and Kevin. Oh, and Dennis Meyer.
And me.
And Dan.
Just want to remind you.
Dan's not listed. So okay.
Want to remind you with the new payroll system that we'll be moving to centralized payroll, and that would result in additional staff in the clerk's office. We budgeted for 3 positions for next fiscal year. Those positions will be phased in over the next 6 months, and we need to begin the hiring process for the first position in July. It is a next fiscal year, but we do need board approval to begin the hiring process so we can get somebody on here July 1st to begin the transition to centralized payroll. The other 2 will be phased in over the one probably coming in August and the other late September.
Okay.
So you would need board approval? Okay, I would move that we authorize the county clerk to go forward to begin the hiring process in order to conduct the training appropriately.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I will second. Dan, do you have physical space for these new employees?
Well, we're going to try and the first one we'll make room for in the office. The ensuing 2, hopefully the conference room, the assessors now, and we can use that temporarily. And then we're going to do some remodeling in our office. That's a little bit longer term, but that's on Public Building Commission side. So, and we budgeted next year for some furniture and so forth. So.
Very good. All right, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion?
I'd like to hear what Dennis has to say.
Well, I mean, specifically about the positions, Rick. I mean,
yeah, I mean, are we just? Am I hearing this correctly? We're now adding 3 more full-time employees over the course of the next couple of years.
We are. with the centralization of payroll, what we've talked about is the additional employees over at the clerk's office prior to us going live in October. Do on the department side as far as work out there, that's kind of what I've always mentioned, is that's kind of a work in progress. I mean, we're not going to see the savings of 3 employees up front, but I'm hoping once we keep moving with this payroll, that by moving it to centralization, that we're going to get some savings out there in those departments. It's right now it's kind of, it's kind of a whole new process. So we're going to wait and see, but I think the savings will come down the road in a year, something like that.
And the savings will come in what form?
Well, I mean, I think on some of it, it's going to depend on, what the employees are doing out in those other departments. Our biggest thing right now, I think, is we got people doing so many different things out there we don't even know. We try to figure out the process. By centralizing it, it's going to make it a lot more consistent across the board, because we've got departments handling the same situation different ways. So I'm hopeful that what we see is savings in FTEs out there, or departments making decisions. What should they be doing that they haven't been? I mean, we're still operating so much 1988 that we're not doing what we probably should be.
Rick, I like your thought process. And as we go through all these budget hearings, I think that's a question we should be asking each elected official and department director. With this move to centralization, what types of savings do you see with regards to FTEs? I think that's a really valid question to ask each one of them.
And Deb, I think we can no doubt ask those questions. The problem right now is I don't know if a whole lot of people understand or will know the answer, but I think we keep asking that question so that they understand we're asking. Yeah. We're expecting answers at some point in time, and now's the time that you hear that we're going to start asking.
Commissioner Amundson.
Yeah, and I remember you talking about this when we were discussing this. And one of the things, you get the increase in the efficiencies and the elimination of the inconsistencies. And if it's very likely with some of the inconsistencies that would come up, that we could potentially come up with someone suing us because we're doing things differently, right?
I mean, no doubt. No doubt about it. So, right now we're doing a lot of data entry. We've got employees out there just doing data entry to get everybody else's time in. This is going to push, really more responsibility back out on the employees and supervisors, because, we're hearing all kinds of different stories and stuff like that. But, supervisors are going to have to take a bigger role in things, because everything's going to be pushed from employees to supervisors electronically through the system.
I mean, the savings is, obviously it's what we're going to see is we're going to see more staff bandwidth, even if we're not necessarily freeing up an entire job in each department. We're freeing up 1/3 of a job in 7 or 8 different departments, right? And so in theory, they'll have more staff bandwidth for other projects, which means we won't have to hire in any of those quite as soon. I think it needs to be done, but I'm still of the opinion. I mean, I'm with Commissioner Vest that I'm concerned about it, but I still think it needs to be done. We're going to have to centralize payroll at some point. We've just gotten too big.
And I think, Rick, right now is, as we're going through this process, you know, we're still having people try to come to terms with the process. So we're still in that very early stage, and we're probably in what I would call phase one, you know, and what makes me nervous is I don't know how many phases we might have, but you know, I think the thing is we need to stay in front of the departments, let them get a feel for what this is going to do, but keep asking the questions.
Commissioner Robinson?
Now, one of the things I like to mention is that we are not necessarily a small hiring organization. We have 850 employees, and it crosses a huge section. And so I think that, you know, to do things departmentally, and we're going to the system, to a centralized system, and we need to move it forward. And if hiring the 3 employees, it is an expense, but I think that there is a leap of faith here that it will make things better in the long run, and it will certainly create the efficiencies.
I would just add that the point of efficiencies is to make things easier to be accomplished and less time consuming and less costly. At least that was my experience, 40 years with a private corporation, or a corporation that wasn't a public entity. And I would assume that's part of our goal, at least, in modernizing this payroll system. Now, what we know so far is this modernization is resulting in 3 additional full-time employees.
Well, I think what you need to keep in mind, you're going to have more, I guess the term would be experts on payroll. It's not going to be dispersed amongst people that's only 5% of their job or whatever. These people will be doing this full time, and they'll be on top of it. We'll have backups and so forth. So in the long run, I mean, there's going to be some growing pains here. We're taking on a big responsibility here, and that's just part of the whole gist of this comes with a new system. But in the long term, you're going to have a better system.
Commissioner Shore and then Commissioner Amundson. And Commissioner Yoakum, did you have your hand up at one point? Okay, all right. So Commissioner Shore and then Commissioner Amundson.
Dan, is there a chance that you might not need the 3rd employee?
No, we need to have backup. I mean, we're too thin if we don't. And Kevin, you can certainly chime in on this. We've done a lot of looking at this. So,
Okay,
Kevin,
okay. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to ask Kevin if he had any comments to, or.
We've looked at it. The problem, as Dan said, is, you know, we have a very short payroll deadline. When a pay period ends, there are 8 days before that pay period gets paid out. And without some backups, if one person is out sick or something, it really is going to make payroll processing incredibly tough to do.
Commissioner Amundson.
What was the initial investment that we had to initiate even purchasing the software and so forth for this centralized system? And how long has it taken us to get it incorporated? I guess that what we need to look at what the investments are too. And so if we had a significant investment, we need to make sure that it can move forward efficiently. So what was the initial investment?
So Roma, you know, as you ask about time frame and all this, you know, I lose track of time, but it seems like this implementation's been going for multiple years right now.
It has been.
Yeah, I totally understand that piece because, you know, we're talking, you know, by the time we get this thing implemented, you know, you're probably talking from our side. It's going to be a little over $1 million. I mean, you also have to remember that the city is moving with us. So the city is going to be implementing the same system. So everybody, I think, can remember when we started implementing this thing, we then had to kick the first team to the curb because they weren't able to do it. So it's kind of pushed it out that much longer, and now, we're trying to stay on track for our October 1 date, but now Kevin and the group's all doing pretty much everything just like we're doing this meeting. Cheryl is no longer coming into town and stuff. So we're trying to do everything possible to keep it on track, even as we go through this COVID-19 stuff.
Yeah, and that's the point, I mean, when we entered into this whole system, like it was 2-3 years ago, something like that.
Yes.
We knew that there would be a tremendous investment in terms of just dollars and also just of the time. And now that we are at this point in time, we really need to move forward with the personnel to make this work.
Yeah.
I would call for the question.
Fair enough. I've never chaired a call for the question before. We have a motion to call the question. Is there a second?
Is it necessary?
I don't know.
I
Let's
don't
just
No,
call the
it
roll.
really isn't
Let's
necessary to
Let's
do
just call the
that.
roll then.
Just call the roll.
Roma,
Yes.
Deb,
Yes.
Krista,
Yes. Yes.
Rick,
Yes.
Sean,
Yes.
5-0 motion carries.
Thank you.
Very good. Next up is, no, actually, we're a little ahead of schedule here. So we'll jump down. Can we do the Chief Administrative Officer report? Oh, give Carrie 1 second. Sorry, Carrie, didn't mean to make you run back.
You have a question?
We're a little ahead of schedule. I was going to jump down and do item number A in the Chief Administrative Officer report. If that works for you.
Sure does. Yeah, let me pull up that item.
It's salary request for new bailiff for Judge Elise White.
Yeah, the board always in the past has wanted to know about these salary appointments for new bailiffs. If there's no objection to it, then I'll just roll it to Tuesday for official setting of the salary. That is pretty much the level of that the bailiffs have been set at. There has been some discussion in the past about what the appropriate salary is, but really haven't been any objections that I've heard in the last little bit.
But this salary is in line with all, yeah, I see it right here. Same rate as the other juvenile court bailiffs. Okay.
Yeah, so I just want the board to see it before we put it on Tuesday in case there's any major questions.
Any questions regarding the salary being set for the new bailiff, Sarah Aksamet? Hope I'm
Yes.
saying that right.
Yes, for the new juvenile court judge.
Yep, for the new juvenile court judge.
Yeah, Judge Elise White. So if there's no objection, I'll just roll that to Tuesday.
Okay.
Works for me. We can then jump down to the Deputy Chief Administrative Officer report. Anything to discuss with the priorities, Lancaster County priorities?
I don't have anything new right now.
I don't either.
And this is, I guess I'll put it under establish mutual aid meeting as a standing committee. It really doesn't, or I guess just mutual aid in general. You know, our rural responders are required to have a certain number of training hours per month. And obviously they've had difficulty getting together to do that. And so they reached out to see if we would assist them with Zoom capabilities. And we reached out to David Young, and they are going to be able to utilize the city and the county's Zoom license. And so appreciate IS stepping up to help our rural responders with their training needs.
I think that's great.
Very good.
It is really nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for taking lead on that. So that's wonderful. Anything else on the county board priorities list?
I guess the one thing that I would just, and I don't remember seeing that, but let's see. Let me go. Do we have the annual report on there?
I think
Yes.
so.
Yeah, it's on there.
Okay. I guess, we're coming up to well, June will be May, June, July. Next month we'll be entering into the fourth quarter of the fiscal year. And so we're probably going to have to be thinking about the annual report coming up.
I think we're going to do a little bit different this year. OpenGov has the capacity to kind of build an annual report in the stories. And I think Dennis and I have talked about it a little bit. I'd like to work on that and see if we can make that work. It's really seamless then.
Okay, that sounds like a great idea, as long as we get some sort of a report out.
I like the idea of incorporating it into OpenGov, and hopefully that could at some point in the future become part of the public facing element of OpenGov.
And actually, really, when it comes down to it, I think, the whole reason to tell a story, the county story, is so that what we've done over the past year is so that the taxpayers can know how those tax dollars have been spent. So very good.
And that goes back to what we saw at Nationals last year about how a lot of people are moving away from the printed annual report and much more, online graphics, videos, like you said, telling the story.
Yep. That's
Very good. Very good.
Thank you.
The only thing that I have regarding the county board priorities at all is we do have the I think the solar regulations are on there. I know Commissioner Vest spoke with David Carey earlier in the week, and then I spoke with him yesterday. I think we're back on track. The county attorney is going to be taking that back up next week sometime, and I think we can expect the solar regs to go, the new solar regs to go before Planning Commission on June 10th. So then we'll probably see it mid-June.
Okay.
Everyone can kind of put that on their radar. Commissioner Vest, did you have something there?
Well, there's no good reason for this to be delayed any further in talking with Mr. Carey. So appreciate your support on that.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So I think we all want to see it get done. So, okay. All right. Very good. Then we will move on to Visitors Promotion Advisory Committee, the discussion of board member meetings attended.
Okay, sure thing. Well, let me see here. I got to find it. Okay. Yeah, we met by Zoom. And actually you'll see it come forward. I get extension of 2 committee members until December 31st, 2020. Roland Bergen and Becky Parrott. And will be going forward to renew until December 31st. And then Jeff Cunningham has renewal 4 more years. Let me see. They are suspending improvement grants until December 31st, 2020, simply because not knowing exactly what's going to be happening, the funding with lodging taxes. And we're going to be having another meeting on June 17th to discuss the budget. Typically what they have found that the hotels are down in terms of, Roland was reporting this, hotels are down in attendance by about 10 to 30%. And I was I was surprised that there still are quite a few people attending.
Right.
Yeah, so it's only down 10 to 30% nationally.
I got to tell you, I consider that good news.
That is good news. It really is.
Better than I would have expected.
Yeah. And Amy Dickerson gave a brief report. The family motor coach was canceled. They are going forward with the plans on the rodeo. And as she said, rodeo people are pretty fanatical and they're going forward with it. This is with the rodeo board approval. And the National Quarter Horse Show in June, they're going forward with the National Quarter Horse Show. This is the Cornhusker Classic, really a huge show. And the LEC has been a payroll protection program loan recipient.
When is that in June?
Not sure when that's actually in June.
Okay.
Yeah. I could ask Amy, she'll know.
Sure.
But I don't
Just curious.
She just mentioned that it was going forward in June.
Hey, Roma, we're having some trouble hearing you. When you're up close to your mic, we're getting you good, but then we keep losing you a little bit.
Okay, did you hear all my report? I'd be glad to do it again.
Good.
So,
The main
Yeah,
thing
I would
is
add,
that the rodeo is going forward, so is the Cornhusker Classic, and they received the PPP program. They are that recipient.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Interesting.
payroll protection plan program, whatever.
Carrie, do you have something?
yeah, I would add on the extension of the terms for Becky Parrott and Roland, Roland Morgan, that the board will need to waive the bylaws that we have for the Visitors Promotion Committee on that. Members are restricted to 2 terms. Those terms expire at the end of this June. The board has the authority to waive the bylaws, and in this situation, it would probably be appropriate given the coronavirus. So board will need to take that action. Jeff and Becky are coming later in the meeting today to discuss those items.
I have no objections to it.
Yeah.
Seems appropriate.
Okay. Fair enough then. So let's hop back there into this agenda. And that was the only board member meeting attended. What do we think? Do we think we can go forward with the additional appropriations letter and motocross financials?
Sure.
Let's do it. Let's move forward.
Okay, so so I'm going to start this morning talking about the additional appropriations and also we need to talk about the motocross financials because today's kind of the day that I need to get that information out to the other groups too. So and then then we've got David Young coming to talk about IS costs a little bit, and then we're gonna fire it up with budget hearings today. So you're getting a lot of Dennis today, so good luck with that. So I am going to pull up the additional appropriation memo here. And really what we need to do is get this sent out because we need to really kind of finish up this fiscal year. So this letter just kind of really says it's time to start. Once April closes, it's time to start looking at those numbers. We had every department kind of send us mid-year numbers. Now we just kind of really take a look to see what's happened, over the last 3 or 4 months. So with that in mind, we'll also talk about additional appropriations as we do budget hearings too, just to kind of make sure, because just to remind everybody, we did do the resolution a while back for our county court, our general assistants, and our election commissioner, which was just right about $1.1 million that we moved there. Now, of that first 1.1 million, the election commissioner will receive, if they haven't already received it, back from LPS to cover the majority of that for that school bond election. So, but the thing that we have to remember is, excuse me, we only, we set $2 million aside. We've already used 1.1 of that. And with corrections and the sheriff, those numbers that we had at mid-year were pretty good size. So we're going to be a lot closer to that 2 million than what we have been over the last handful of years. And then what that really means to us is that drives into what our ending balance will be for the fiscal year. So we need to start this process so that we can kind of figure out where we're at. what the memo also talks about is, you know, how to finish out purchase orders and any bids that might have to happen. How we finish out payment vouchers through the end of the year, how we kind of book payroll when we get into June, so that departments can really kind of see those numbers, and just how we're gonna actually try to clean this up. So what will happen from here then is departments will start looking at this, and then I'll make a decision on how soon do we need to move these, because what we have always said to our departments is we will not let you spend over or go over your spending authority. So that would mean, you know what, we'd stop payments and stuff going out of there. So it is crucial for departments that that have very tight budgets that that they get the numbers back, because it could stop payments coming out of their business units.
Dennis, a question just on the second paragraph. When you say the form should return to you as soon as possible, I mean, do you need a date on that, or do they just know if they don't get you the form, they're in big time
Right.
trouble?
When I'll send this out in an email today, and I'll basically tell them, let April close out and then get the information back to me.
Okay.
And the reason I leave it as that is they see that, you know what, if they need payroll cut and they're going to exceed their budget, that's going to cause some problems.
Yeah.
So, you know, so I've really never had any problems with departments getting this information back to me. So I'm not too concerned about it.
Okay. Thank you.
But yeah, so this is just kind of the start, you know, just to kind of finish up the fiscal year, so that we kind of, you know, kind of see where we're at. You know, a couple other things that we're doing with this fiscal year is, you know, we're trying to round up numbers for NACO, so that we can kind of show them what we've kind of been spending. So I've got Danielle helping me out with that. And I've been talking with Sarah, because Sarah's kind of working on some grant stuff with the Crime Commission. And so we're trying to kind of come up with everything there, so that we can kind of see what it is. You know, as we were talking about payroll a little bit earlier, you know, when you're decentralized, now, you know, when you're decentralized, what happens now when we try to come up with numbers for a survey? Now we work with each individual department to get them to reply back to us. And now we wait to see, do they all reply? Don't they? We've been getting a pretty good response, but you know, that's part of being the size that we are and being decentralized. So that's why I honestly think the centralization of payroll is an excellent step for us. Now we just have to watch it as we keep moving forward, so we get what we need out of it.
Mm-hmm.
So if the board is all right with this memo here, I will email it out to the departments and start that process.
Thumbs up.
It's fine with me.
Good by me.
Okay. So let's go to the motocross then.
Let's do.
I'm excited.
I mean, you know, we only get to talk motocross every once in a while. So, you know, not many counties get to deal with motocrosses. So, so basically the reason we're talking motocross today is there's a requirement out there that says we need to get the financial information out to the partners, which is us, the NRD, and Game and Parks. So I'll get that information out to them also later today. But you know, the last couple of years with the motocross has kind of been an up and down ride as you know, as they were dealing with the whole Abbott thing and everything like that. So when you look at calendar year 2018 and you see the number of days operating, it was at 65. I believe in 2017 it was over 100 days. So 2018 was kind of the year in flux on you know, they weren't doing a whole lot because they didn't know where they were going to actually be. So in 2019, some things changed a little bit out there, and as you can see, it wasn't back to being the norm, but you can see moving up to 87 that it's starting to kind of move that direction. You know, Pat Thomas that runs the facility for us. I mean, there is, at this point in time, I don't know of anybody better. He eats this motocross stuff up. And so I only expect these numbers, you know, to kind of keep moving in the right direction. We'll kind of see with the whole COVID thing how it affects 2020. But you know, he's got some plans, and he seems to be trying to keep this thing moving out there.
And what, Dennis, what's a win on this in terms of days of operating? Is that 150? Like, what do we, you know, if we can hit a button and have it our way, what would we choose?
You know, from my standpoint, the thing, I don't know that I care about number of days operating. One of the main things with the grant that we had gotten for this was just for it to be open to the public.
Right.
You know, from my main standpoint, what I like to be able to see is that Pat's group out there isn't losing a ton of money, where he would be looking at it saying, wow, this maybe isn't worth me taking this project on.
Right.
Because then one of us might have to go out there and run it. And
nose goes.
I'm going to throw out probably Ann. I think she probably makes the most sense. So
yeah, that works. I think that's a good fit.
Okay. But you know, so the main reason, you know, I would think it's always 100 plus. A lot of it depends on weather. You know, a lot of it, you know, just kind of depends on what's happening. You know, because like right now, I would assume it's real slow out there.
Yeah, I'm sure.
So what I kind of look at is when you see that they brought in about $80,661, they spent about $82,000. So it's right around the break-even process, and I expect, and what I've seen over the last 5 years, that's about where it ends up. Okay. This year they changed accountants, and so some of the stuff is a little bit reported differently, but they're also trying to move more to what's an accrual basis of accounting. So what you can see on here is they're actually reporting depreciation, which, you know, that really doesn't affect cash a whole lot. It's more of an accounting world type of entry. So they're booking that. They're, as you can see in payroll, last year they dropped it quite a bit. Yeah. You know, now they're probably able to have somebody kind of spend a little bit more time out there because they're trying to grow it back to to where it was at some point in time. But so my main reason when I look at this, I like to see that they're about on target of kind of breaking even. Pat's got some, he's got some huge ideas, and you know, I know he wants to take the next step to get bigger and better races out there. But I think some of it, you know, just with the whole Abbott thing, now we'll see with the COVID thing, we'll see how soon he can get there. Just because he's got other things that he's dealing with also, but he's got a ton of connections. I think I always tell you that, you know, he's got a son that, you know, he heads down to Texas to race in the winter and stuff like that. So Pat and his family eat this stuff up, and they've got connections out there. So
Dennis, remember his son's name.
yeah, his son's name, of course, is Diesel.
Diesel.
And so, you know, I think when we kind of get everything back up on par where stuff's at, we'll see, because I think he's got some opportunities.
Okay. Commissioner Shore?
And question for you, Dennis, or maybe Carrie. We had made a couple grants to to motocross facility out of the VPC, and they had a couple delays. Were they able to spend those funds down?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, they did.
Hey, just a quick procedural point for everybody. When we're in this, when a presenter is sharing their screen to us, I can only see 5 of the faces at any one time during that. So if you're sitting there waiting with your hand raised, when we're in this view and I'm not getting to you, I'm not always seeing all the commissioners in this. So just don't be afraid to pipe up and interject when we're in this view. So I just happened to see Deb that time. So
Okay,
anyway.
so I'm just gonna move over a little bit to here's more kind of on just some of the numbers based off of the months that you can kind of see the number of days open by month, and kind of this will show you where it was 87 days and stuff like that. So it's just kind of comparing year to year and just kind of showing you that 2019 was no doubt just a little bit better than 2018 was.
You know, and I guess I would point out too that, you know, last year we had some terrific rainfall. We had 55 inches, and I was just wondering if if that, I know it was better than the previous year, but it could even be better this year too, because we may not have quite 55 inches of rain.
Yeah, I mean, no doubt. I mean, they live so much off of what the weather's doing.
Yeah.
Very good.
Okay, so basically, I kind of just wanted to kind of show you those types of numbers that we've got out there, and just kind of let you know that that 2019's over, and we'll see what kind of comes with 2020.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Very good. Well, thank you for that presentation. So we are now about 20 minutes ahead of schedule.
Can I ask a quick question to Dennis?
Yeah,
Dennis,
sure.
when we get to the OpenGov part, you will be doing sharing screen, right?
Yes, and
I just want to make sure, because I had trouble logging in and I haven't fixed that. So I just want to make sure that you'll be showing it to us. You won't be expecting us to log in on our own.
yeah, because I kind of thought that would kind of be tough with you trying to stay on here and being logged in. What's going to be nice is what I'll show you is I've got the transparency portal hooked up on our website, and we'll go straight through there. And that will be just like what any other taxpayer or citizen can go out and see also. So you guys will be dealing with exactly what every citizen out there that can log on to our website can look at.
Okay.
Nice. That's great. So we got 20 minutes before David Young.
We want to take our break?
Yeah, let's go ahead and do that break now. And then we can come back at 9:45, I think.
Okay.
That works for everyone.
Mhm.
You're set.
Okay, it is 9:45. We're going to come back and reconvene for Information Services Cost Allocation and Budget with David Young and Dennis Meyer.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for having me. I have a pretty brief overview to talk about, and then be willing to answer any questions. Couple of things on the agenda today. If I can get my computer to switch screens for me. There we go. There we go. We're going to talk about M365, work from home, and the IS cost allocation model. As you guys know, my presentations are very long and boring, but hopefully we'll get through this one in a reasonable amount of time. So on M365, we have heard back from all departments, both the city and county side, and it looks like our cost to implement Windows 10, Office 365, and mobile device management software will be $2.8 million over 5 years. What that means for the county, on the county side of the ledger, that's about $262,000 per year. We do have a number of users who will only get email for access to the new HR system. We don't have a firm number on that yet, but we do have that included in the agreement that's coming up. On Office, go ahead.
So just so I'm clear then, so the county grand total, everything will be 2 point what? How much?
So the city and county together will spend $743,000 a year.
Yep.
For a total of 2.8 over 5 years.
Okay, and the county's grand total will be 600,000-ish.
Yeah, for five, it's basically 260 a year.
Yeah, okay.
That's the county's total. That's to get every computer on Windows 10 Enterprise, every employee on Office 365, except for those employees who will only use email. And we don't have a good count on that yet.
Yep, okay. Thanks. Just wanted to make sure I had my numbers right.
Sure. So in all of our work from home, we had a little excitement last week. There were a couple of days where we were having some issues with Orion, the county assessor's website access, also Operative IQ on the fire side, and Beehive on Public Works. What we realized after doing about 2 days worth of troubleshooting is that we had burned up our firewall. So that was exciting. The interesting thing, good news, our firewall was under warranty. They did an overnight shipment to us this weekend. We've got it in stock and we'll be installing it either late tonight or late tomorrow night. So a little bit of excitement here for us on our end. On the work from home front, what we have been doing over the last couple of weeks is making sure all of the endpoints, computers that people are taking home are secure when they log in. So we've been calling people individually that have patches that they need to do and helping them work through the process of getting the patches. One of the other things we've been doing is making sure our VPN is up to snuff. It is, it's going well. What we have seen is people prefer the cloud storage option for documents instead of logging into the network. So if you have Office 365 and you're using Teams, you don't seem to have any issues. Everybody's sharing documents, collaborating. If you do not have Office 365, that's where we've seen some of the documentation pain, so people sharing documents. But Office 365 will take care of all of that for us. And we've also seen an uptick in people logging into the system and collaborating on a single document together. So those are some of the successes from work from home. On the budget cost allocation model, in 2019-2020, this fiscal year, the IS budget was split 70.8% to the city and 29.2% to the county. Under the new model, it is 72% city, 27% county. So it's a 1.27% shift. You may remember, we've all had a lot going on, but about a month and a half ago when we talked about this, the new IS budget model was to divide the base budget by 4 categories: number of employees, number of computers, mobile devices that are connecting to the network, and applications. That's these 4 columns here. They're equally weighted. And then these columns here to the right, you have CGIS new, some of JDE, which we only have 2 departments that participate in JDE, finance and county finance, city finance. GIS, this is divided across 13 different agencies, some county, some city, some external. Acela, there's only 3 agencies that use that. M365, here's the total number for M365 with city and county. And then pass through, this is used by both the city and county, primarily the city, to directly bill departments for their expenses. This was a short presentation. We've had a lot going on. I'm open to any questions. I can do deep dives on any of these topics. One thing we have done over the last 4 weeks is we have met with every county department and had a presentation and a deep dive on the budget for each one of those departments. We've only had one department that, due to COVID-related things, was unable to meet, and that was youth services, but they are extremely busy, and I understand that. Across the board, we've met with every county department, done a deep dive on the budget, and have received generally supportive comments all the way around.
Hey, David.
Yes.
On the 365 piece of it.
Sure.
What kind of time frame are you talking about here?
So we have to execute an agreement with Microsoft. That's an enterprise agreement, and it will take us, I would suggest, at the best case scenario, 4 weeks to get that done. So that puts us through the first week of June. And our goal would be 6 months from the signature of that contract, every agency, every department, every computer. That's a very aggressive schedule that will require coordination with the different departments. But in 6 months, we can literally change out all of our Windows 7, all of our Windows 10, to Windows 10 Enterprise, and get everybody stood up in Microsoft Teams.
Okay.
That'll be tremendous. That's good work.
Thank you. I would ask for your support when we get some users saying we're going too fast. But we want to be aggressive. We want to do this. Microsoft is offering us 6 months of free employee training on Microsoft Teams. And so we're going to ask employees to carve out time to take that training. And that's really why we want to use this aggressive schedule, is we don't want it to linger on.
Well,
So
it'll be good.
So
Go ahead.
Dave, will you train 100% of employees?
So we will have virtual training, classes and videos that will be available to 100% of employees. I think 100% usually is a pretty high bar. So if you think about on the county side, the county engineering group, the sheriff's department, some percentage of their employees really do not use Office products, right? So their interaction will be very light. So an introductory video, this is how we want you to use it. Here's some questions. For them, it'll be very easy. But about a solid 2/3 of the users, about 1,900 users, are what you would consider power users, people who use Office all day long. And that's where we're going to target our training and spend more of our training resources to make sure that they are successful. So if you look at these license counts here, this 1,900, these are your power users who are getting the E3 license, and about 1,400 F1 users. This is online only. These are the people that really lightly use Office. They may need to open an Excel document. They may need to open a Word document. Minor editing, not creation of documents all day long every day, not creation of Excel spreadsheets. So we will target our training here, but it will be available to everyone.
So Dave, on the team side of it, does F1 get Teams?
Yes, they do.
Okay.
Everyone who gets these 2 licenses gets Teams. And the only people who do not get Teams are if we have email accounts only, this exchange for $6 per month. And those people would specifically be like street department employees, parks temporary employees, any temporary employees that we bring on at the county. where they need to get paid. So they need an email address to use the new finance system or the new HR system. But they don't really need access to Office.
Okay.
So on the county side specifically, you have 712 what we would call power users, people who use Office all day, every day, and 317 users who lightly use Office. It's not core to their job.
Well, it'd be very nice to eliminate the old forms of Microsoft that we've been using and just get it onto one consistent program.
Thank you for that.
Mhm.
Commissioner Shore, were you asking something? I think you're on mute.
I am.
Oh, there you
I couldn't tell on your dry sense of humor if you were burning up the firewall literally or figuratively.
We literally burned up the firewall.
So that's an actual picture.
No.
Okay.
This is a picture I grabbed offline.
Okay.
What happened was the firewall started exhibiting symptoms of a problem, and we couldn't nail it down. And so we would go for about a day and a half. Everything would work just fine. And then the packets going through the firewall would slow down significantly. So we would fail over to our secondary. Everything would work fine. We'd reboot the primary. We did this 2 or 3 times. Finally, we just failed over the secondary, left it for about a week, and everything was fine. So we did a return process with the manufacturer. It's under warranty. They took a look at it and they said, yeah, this one's done. So,
Okay. All right.
but no, this was just a picture for all of us.
Okay.
The real picture is very boring.
Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you for that explanation.
Sure. Any other questions? I'm happy to go short. I'm happy to go long. I mean, I appreciate the opportunity to come in. I know that we tried to do this last month, but due to a lot of changes in schedules, it didn't happen. I really appreciate the opportunity to come in and talk with you as well.
And you still will be reaching out once again to the Youth Services Center, correct?
Of course. We have an open invitation to meet with them and talk about this issue, but they are the last one. We literally met with everyone on the list.
No, I mean, you said at the beginning that you thought the financial split would be 70-30, and you're coming in 72-27. So as far as I'm concerned, you're under budget.
Well, the budget overall has increased, but yes, the split.
I get it. I get it.
On the new, and this will be a very stable budget model, is basically 72-27. And really the driver is number of employees. So when you look at these other categories, number of computers, number of mobile devices connecting and applications, the one that makes the biggest difference in how cost is allocated is number of employees.
Yeah.
Which is good for all of us because now we're treating everybody the same. Every department will get Windows 10. Every department will get Teams. Every department will get customer service. I think that this will be a much more stable budget model for all of us.
Good news.
Makes sense to me.
The thing I like about your presentations, Mr. Young, is they make sense to me. You know, you present this information in a way that a lay person can understand it. And I just want to say I appreciate that greatly.
Thank you. You're very kind. I am a layperson, so I have to understand it. But no, I sincerely thank you for that comment.
Very good. Well, if there's no more questions, David, thank you for being here with us. Is there anything? I guess, are we ready to move to the department budget hearings then with Dennis?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. David, thanks for being here.
Thank you, Commissioner. Appreciate the opportunity. Take care.
Much appreciated. Thank you.
Okay, so today's kind of the kickoff for budget hearings, and you know, we're starting light like we usually do. We'll do the budget and fiscal office, the county board budget, and then we'll talk about Rick Ringline's vet service fund or Veterans Aid Fund and his veteran service budget. But before we get started, I kind of want to just throw out a few things just to kind of talk about them, because they'll affect every budget that we're going through. This year, again, we're using OpenGov, and I think what you're going to find out as we go out to the transparency portal, you know, I don't know that we would have been able to pull these budget hearings off like we are now this year if I didn't have the portal up and going. I think it would have been extremely tough. We would have had probably have everybody with 2 laptops trying to run all that stuff. So I'm hoping the portal will show you that it's helping us here, and it should be able to help any citizen that wants to get in and look at charts and graphs based off our budget hearings. It will allow for them to just go out to our website and hop in there and see what you guys are seeing. So one of the things that we've done this year with OpenGov is we're using a piece called Workforce, and Workforce really kind of deals with positions. So we have brought in like 928 positions into Workforce, and we let Workforce do a lot of the calculations so far as health insurance costs, FICA costs, pension costs. So we've worked with each of the departments to make sure that we've got each of their positions in there built with salaries and benefits. And then from there, Workforce is automatically pushed into OpenGov, and that's what drives salary and benefit numbers this year. So it will allow for us to look at how many open positions do we have out there, because even if you have an open position, we had to build it in because that's the only way we could get numbers in there. So when we start looking at some of this Workforce, it will allow for us to run some reports that we'll be able to take a look at. We'll be able to pull salary and benefit numbers very easily this year. One of the things that's happening this year versus previous years is we actually have 4 union contracts that are into effect for fiscal year 21. So we have built those cost of living into the numbers this year. We've always told departments, if you know the numbers, build them in. So at some point, I will be able to show you a report that shows we've got cost of living built in this year of about $464,000, which the majority of the years we haven't been able to budget for it because we didn't know those numbers. So the four unions are FOP 29, which are the sheriff deputies, FOP 77, which is our juvenile detention officers, and then both of the IBEWs, the general and the engineering, those are built in there. So some of the increased costs as we go through each of these departments over the next couple months, those will drive some of them more than others. You know, in the budget and fiscal office, I don't have any employees in those 4 groups, so I don't have any cost of living built in. But somebody that is heavy with those employees are going to have those numbers. And when we're And when we're going through this, what we can do is I will set up a report so that you can kind of go out there and look at it by department to see how many, cost of living increases are happening for the number of employees in those departments. So I'll give you access to that, but I think it workforce allows for us to do some things in there that hopefully helps the whole budget process out. On the IS costs that David talked about earlier, some departments coming in because of this change in model will have some decent size increases in their IS costs, and there's a few that will actually have some decreases in their costs. And a lot of it, like David mentioned, is really kind of driven off number of employees. So for example, when we get to the sheriff's office, I know the sheriff's office, is one of our larger employee number. Their IS costs have jumped quite a bit. Adult probation, which really has no county employees, their costs have decreased. I chuckle because Jeff over there called me. He said my IS costs are going down. Is that right? I mean, even good news people are nervous about.
Yeah.
So
hallelujah.
Yeah. So the thing that we'll have to remember is this year the fluctuation is going to take place, and then from there on out, hopefully, then everything kind of levels itself off. One of the things that we've dealt with from the department side is just IS costs fluctuating each year, and really, it was really kind of tough to explain why or how or things like that. So I'm hopeful that this model, once we get through this year, kind of levels everything off for the departments, and the departments can look at it and say, okay, yes, it's based off my number of employees, it's based off the number of my PCs, it's based off the number of my devices. And then it also allows for the departments to be able to drive some of those numbers. They can take a look at their number of devices and be like, is that really how many we need? And if it is, great. If it isn't, they can kind of adjust that makes sense for them. So, but I would assume on the IS side of things, we will hear those as we're going through the hearings. The other thing, and we talked about this a little bit earlier, was dealing with the implementation of the new payroll system. And I do think it makes sense, that we talk about the payroll system with each of the departments as they're here, letting them know kind of what's happening. We talked about some of the communication stuff last week, and I had a couple department heads that have reached out to me. Right now I feel like we're in the stage where, if you ever watch Christmas Family Vacation, I like to say him's nervous, and we got a lot of him's nervous out there right now. So we're gonna, these next 5 or 6 months are gonna be big months, because one module went into effect, but that human resources model isn't really touching employees right now. The next model we'll go into is the absence model, and that will take place in June. So we'll have training that will have to take place in June, and we're going to need the department heads to kind of be pushing that information out to their employees and making sure that those employees are getting that information too. and even with a couple of the department heads, I've had to tell them through conversations this week, and some of them will probably tell you that Dennis is kind of getting a little crabby about the payroll system, and I've told him, I'm like, if you're nervous, get to the meetings. Don't send somebody else, because you're also driving the ship. So, you know, you got to be at those meetings so that you can hear it and say what you need. Calling me up at this point in time saying, oh, are we taking this into effect and all of that? You know, the train's starting to move. So if you've got questions or concerns, you better be reaching out
Okay,
now.
I have a question. Okay, I have a question. Dennis, you talked about this goes into effect in June, and then we'll have trainings in June. If it goes effect in June, should we be doing trainings in May?
It will take place like June 18th.
Okay, June 18th. And then these meetings, I know that you're targeting the, you know, payroll person in each department, but you do want department directors and supervisors and elected officials, I suppose, anyone to attend. Are those being held via Zoom, or do you not know yet?
They're going to be done a couple different things. You know, we're going to do some videos through Jamie, and then we're going to post those out there. And so that we're going to do it's, I mean, everybody's really going to have to go through the training, because everybody's going to have to get onto the system. Everybody's going to have to be able to do a vacation leave slip. Everybody's going to, you know, supervisors are going to have to approve those. So it's a whole change in philosophy. Right now, we have a lot of groups that have maybe one person sitting in that department that's handling everything. And that person's maybe not a supervisor, but he or she just pretty much data entries everything. That data entry is going away. Me as an employee, I'm going straight into the system, and I'm handling everything myself there, and then pushing stuff up off to supervisors to approve that.
Okay. When those trainings occur, will that, I know I personally, I'd like to at least sit through one, because, you know, we are hearing concerns. I'd like to know what information they're getting, so I understand it, so I'm in a better place to, you know, answer questions, direct them the right place, or, you know, promote the fact that this is where, like you said, the ship is sailing and we all need to be aboard.
Right. And Deb, you're an employee. I mean, you're going to have to get into the system, so you're going to need some training. You know, we're all going to need that.
Right. Okay.
So the biggest thing is, you know, there's going to be different training sessions over the next 5 or 6 months, because we're going to have a new module that comes in over the next 5 or 6 months. So we're going to kind of keep, you know, a module. When a module comes out, there's training for that module.
I have a question.
Yeah, Commissioner.
And maybe Dennis, you're the right person to answer this. Maybe it would be someone else, but is there a way to track like what percentage of each department's employees have attended training, so we can know who's doing an effective job of getting in and learning what they need to?
Yeah, Rick, that's a great question. In our communication meeting yesterday, with the city, we are trying to come up with, I don't know if we have a real great way to be able to track that. And I don't know, you know, Ann's sitting in with us on those communication meetings, and I don't know if we came up with anything real good yesterday, but what are your thoughts?
About in terms of making sure that people do the trainings?
Yeah.
I think we're going to probably create something, unfortunately, that's manual, but just a check off sheet that they can say, I did this training, this training, this training, and then they sign it and it goes in their file, just like all the other trainings that we make mandatory, sexual harassment, internet policies, those kinds of things. It's probably just going to be our easiest option for now.
Okay, so and at a minimum, then there'll be some written documentation of them attesting that they did the training that we asked.
Yes, I think that that's best, don't you, Dennis?
Yeah, I mean, I would tend to think so, yeah.
It's a little cumbersome, but we don't have any other web-based tracking system that we can do for that right now.
Okay, and I'm relying on previous experience here, but there were times when we would have to do training on the computer, you know, online, and we would go through it. And then once we completed it, we would attest that, yes, we have completed this, and it would go into a computer database somewhere. So if we don't have that, then the written may be the best.
Right, and we're gonna have to trust that they do it. I mean, and some people are, even though they do the training, they're still gonna need help when it actually comes time to use the module. And that's just how it's gonna be.
Yeah.
And that's why we've talked a little bit about doing those snippets of, you know, shorter videos, focusing more on specific things so that if you do just need a reminder, here's how to do it.
Yeah.
So we're hopeful as we, and you know, in the first training session that we have, I'm sure we'll learn a ton.
Yes.
So that when we hit the next training module, we'll adjust and hopefully it just kind of gets better as we kind of move towards that October 1 date.
It'd almost be nice, Dennis, with what you're talking about with the short snippets, maybe to have the FAQ, frequently asked questions, place say, well, this isn't working, what do I do? And then it could steer them to the video or the information.
Yeah, I think there's no doubt some options like that. So, and we're still trying to, you know, come up with ideas on you know, on how we can do some of the training, whether, you know, is there a possibility to do some type of Zoom? We just don't know what the final answer is yet, other than some type of video with Jamie's help. I think is kind of the biggest one we're looking at, because then we can place it out there and it allows for employees to get out there at any point in time. Okay, so any other questions on that stuff? I'm gonna move and I'm gonna jump out into the portal and just kind of show you what we've got out there. And like I said, what this is going to allow, this will allow for you or for anybody to really kind of jump out there at any point in time. So let's see here. So I'm going to go out to the website and just kind of show you how we get out there. Ann and Danielle have put a nice little green button on the web page called Budget. You click on that and you go into what is called the Financial Transparency Portal. And in here, I've just kind of put a little bit of verbiage to kind of say, hey, you know what? We've partnered with OpenGov. We're now going to open this up. You know, Lancaster County is starting their budget process and will include proposed budget requests that will be discussed at department budget hearings. And then I also put out there that information is considered a work in progress until the budget is adopted by the board in August. That way people understand those numbers out there are not final. And then I've just got at the bottom is just a few kind of tips as you get into the portal. And once we get in there, what you will see is it really looks like the reports we dealt with last year. So you click on the dollar bills and you move on out. Here we go. to the portal. And when you get out here for the first time, it will just have a few different things on here to kind of show you, here's the filters, here's some reports. If somebody wants to export the information, drop it in Excel, they can do that. Different things like that. So this is kind of a first time when you go out there to it. But I'm just going to hop into view the report, and I keep trying to move you guys around because you're kind of in my screen at times.
Dennis,
But
you can hit the you've got the bar of us right there.
Yeah.
If
He's
you hit
probably
the-
got it. You probably have it
Okay.
vertical and you want it horizontal.
Yeah. So I've removed you all right now. So
in your dreams, buddy.
Dennis has
Okay.
waited for this moment for years.
Yes. So when you go out here, what I've done is I've just set it up by date. So you will see here, this is just called April 30th, department budget hearings. And from there, you will then see under the April 30th, you will see the 4 budgets that we're going to talk about today. And what I will keep doing is, like for May 7th, I will just add another date out there that will have those. So when we're done, we will have all the department budget hearing stuff out there. And then when we adopt a budget, I'll remove all the budget hearing stuff because we'll have final budget information. So like I said, everybody, the one other thing that I've got out here under stories is still just the story that I put together in regard to last year's budget, where people have the ability to drill down into this information. And when Ann talked about stories and stuff like that for the annual, I think that's part of what we can work with to put our annual report together, is through that, so that we have the ability, we can stick it out on the portal, we can stick it, wherever on the website, but it maybe is going to give us some opportunities. So let's talk my budget and fiscal office. So one of the things that I'll talk about with each of the departments is what are we doing for additional appropriations for this year? At mid-year, I had a number of about 17,500 that I would need for additional appropriations, and it really comes down to cost of living and health insurance. Health insurance increased by about 3.5%, January 1. So you will see that when we get into my budget numbers, you'll see my budget is really 96.86% really salaries and benefits. So that really drives everything. We have also, in the budget office, I am still utilizing what we call our on-call accountant, which is Liz. And she's been a tremendous help to us this last fiscal year. And I think she's still going to be a tremendous help. She's still willing to help out on audit side, and she's still willing to help out on some training. We've got a lot of new accounting people throughout the county. So her willingness to help helps out the budget and fiscal office tremendously.
Dennis, will she be trained on the new payroll system as well, or does that not impact what she does for you?
She doesn't really get into that a whole lot.
Okay. Okay.
Even on the Open Gov site stuff, she doesn't get into that a whole lot either. I really focus her more on kind of JDE, our financial system, and and our audits.
Okay.
Because those tend to be probably where we're the weakest at. And she can help out. Ron has come on and he dives into stuff in JD and stuff like that. But the old time knowledge still helps out quite a bit.
Okay.
So in next year's budget, I'm going to run her at like a 0.25 FTE, and we'll see. We'll see if she told me she's up for it. We'll see if she is or not. It's totally her call.
Okay.
Okay, so a couple other things I'm going to ask departments is COVID-19 driving your budget for this year, and what are we talking about? We're accumulating some numbers right now, but I want the departments to kind of tell us what's maybe driving their budget right now from COVID-19, and going into their budget request. Is it driving their budget request also, so that we can kind of know that, so that if we do have to gather more information, we kind of know also who's our big players in the game. And I don't want to leave anybody off the list that maybe is out there doing something. So let's talk my budget numbers real quick. I'll remind you when we go into this graph, it comes up and it'll show expenses and revenues. So when I go over here, you'll see that my budget request is $294,853, and my revenues is at $29,510. Expenditures are jumping up by about 8.34%, and that is really driven by salaries and benefits, and it's also driven by last year when I budgeted for Liz. I budgeted at a lower amount, and for the time that she has put in and what we're trying to expect for next year, it's going to drive it up just a hair. Our revenues will also be going up about 12.5%, and that's really based off of time that we bill out to the Public Building Commission and to the RTSD, and it's all based off of now that Ron has been here for over a year and it has all the benefits and all of that in play, we include that in our calculation for when we bill it out. So net increase between revenues and expenditures for my office will be at just a little less than a plus $20,000 number. When you drill down into expenses, this is where you can get into to see that on here, this is where I came up with that my salaries and benefits are at 96.86% of my budget. It drives everything. So not only can you change it up in the graph, but I can also then drill down at the bottom too to go all the way down. If you wanted to compare my salary, regular salary, temp salary, you can get all the way down into here also to see what's kind of driving everything there. In the other charges and services, one of the things that is in here, our rent staying the same. I'm bumping up a little bit for training dollars. Today, or the next couple days, Ron is sitting in a GFOA training session that deals with governmental accounting and deals with audits. And I think it's an excellent opportunity. He'll have these 2 days, and then he'll have 2 more days. So it's, I think it's a great piece of training for him. And I think throughout the year, a little piece of training like that only helps us out. You know, I'll be asking people about number of FTEs, budget and fiscal office. We're budgeting for 2.25. Technology fund request, that's for anybody that's asking for laptops, PCs. We do not have a request for that. You know, me and Ron are both utilizing our personal laptops at home as we work from home, but we were able to pick up a couple extra monitors from IS that they had sitting down there that kind of helps us out. But I think for now, I think we're all right. Future upgrades, technology, or building stuff. You know, at some point in time, we're going to have to upgrade JDE again. In May of 26, or last time we did it was May of 2016. So this fiscal year, we'll hit the 5-year range. We're in conversations with Oracle to see what the next move is. I don't have any hard facts on that yet, but we're gathering that. So we'll see. Last thing that I'll remind individuals just about our payroll system. Any questions on the budget and fiscal office? If not, I'm going to jump down into the commissioners. And this business unit here that we're talking about is strictly your guys' salary and benefits. So what you see here is when we look at the expenses, about $333,276. It's about a 4.26% increase. And again, it's all driven by what's happened with health insurance and cost of living. When there are no revenues on here, what you will see down there at the bottom there is net effect for this business unit is just about $13,623. If you wanted to drill down, you can then see you can see everything's personal services. And then you can kind of get down into, come on, into the salary side versus the benefit side. But like I mentioned, everything's driven by what's happening with health insurance and cost of living. Questions on anything with your own budget? As you can kind of see down there, that will kind of show you, you know, with the health insurance, what's kind of driving there is just change in some of the health insurance by you guys as county board members. I can never remember quite when Krista came on, but part of that is Krista coming on and stuff like that. So that's what's coming into play there. Questions on any of that? So, Rick, are you on right now?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so we're going to jump over to the Veterans Aid Fund and talk about that a little bit, and then we'll jump into Rick's really operating fund. The one thing, and then I'll turn it over to Rick here real quick. The one thing, when you look at the numbers right now in the Veterans Aid Fund, you will see that the 21 budget is really the same as the 20 budget. But what we're doing is we're really kind of waiting until we end up to see what our fund balance is. Our fund balance right now is about 12,000. So far, Rick has spent about 3,400 out of there. So when we talked the other day, me and Rick were thinking, you know what, instead of transferring 10,000 over, unless something comes up, that we're going to maybe only transfer 5,000, and it will still give us the ability to budget for what Rick's thinking.
Okay.
So, Rick, thoughts on the Veterans Aid Fund?
It might have been a different Rick that responded than the one you intended, Dennis.
Yeah, I was Rick Ringline.
Yeah, I know.
Rick Ringline, are you on?
Not seeing him unless he's. I'm not sure who CSV RJR is.
I think that's probably Rick. So, Sean, does it show that he's muted?
Hey, Rick, are you with us? Try talking now. I just unmuted him. He's unmuted on my end.
Okay. Hey, Jamie.
Yeah, I'm here.
So, do you see anything with Rick Ringline?
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now. He should be able to. I know some folks have had audio issues when using the Sonic Wall. They're on the invite. Rick, if you can hear right now, on your invite, there was also a call-in number that you can use. Can you maybe see if you can use that call-in number to, if you're on Sonic Wall and unable to get in on audio, try using that call-in number and see if that will work. Hey, Craig Gifford, I see that you're also on there. Do you guys have any other suggestions other than that for the workaround on Sonic Wall?
Hey, Jamie, it's Ann.
Yeah.
Rick just sent me an email that says he can't get the mic to work, so I'll tell him to call in.
Okay, that sounds good. Yeah, I wonder if it might be that Sonic Wall thing. I'm not positive, but I know we've run into a couple of issues with folks having trouble with audio on Sonic Wall. And Tanner that works over in IS said that some folks experience that. So it's just a guess, but have Rick give me a holler if he has trouble finding the call-in number, and I'm going to be digging it up right now.
Okay, so while we're waiting for Rick to come in, I mean, this Veterans Aid Fund budget is, I mean, like I said, we spent $3,400 out of there. So, we'll kind of clean it up once we get a fund balance at the end of June, but it's going to be right around where we've always tried to keep it. Rick's group does a great job of getting vets set up with money through the state or for the federal government. So $3,400 out of here is, I mean, that's an excellent number for us.
Good work.
Dennis, is that fund where it is set? Is that an interest-bearing account?
This one here, this one here is not really earning any interest. We've only got about
Okay.
12,000 into there. So
Okay.
it's just pooled with our general fund money.
Okay.
I think we've got Rick with us now.
Yeah, I'm on. You guys got me? I'm on audio.
Yep.
Oh.
We got you.
Okay. So, sorry about that. I'm quite a Luddite on this kind of stuff.
Hey, so I'm going to call Rick. I'm just going to go with Ringline since I've got Rick Vest here too. Otherwise, so Ringline, how much did you hear from me?
Oh, I mean, I heard it in the background. So, I mean, everything sounded good, just like we had talked about the other day.
So, I mean, because right now on the Vets Aid Fund, is COVID-19 affecting it at all?
Not really, because between the federal unemployment and the people that are getting the state and federal, I mean, they're making over $1,000 a week. And so we really haven't had any uptick, even in the Nebraska Veterans Aid Fund. That's the state fund. So right now, unless something drastically changes with the state and the federal unemployment, I don't anticipate anything.
Okay. So when we talked about dropping it maybe from 10,000 to 5, you're good with it, right?
Right. Because like you say, we've only used like you said, just a little under 3,400 for the year, but the state fund we've gotten in through 3 quarters, almost 119,000.
Okay. Okay.
So yeah, I'm fine with that.
Okay. I mean, it always just surprises me how we can get away with only spending 3,400 so far this year, but hey, I'm good with it.
Yeah. And we get great support from some of the different veterans groups with gift cards. We had 2 ladies recently give us over $1,100 in gift cards that we can, give people for food and gas and things like that. That's those are donations, which is totally legal to do. So
yeah. All right. So let's jump over to the Veteran Service really administration budget. And so let's talk about your additional appropriations. At mid-year, we're guesstimating about $4,800. I would assume that that's still probably in the ballpark, correct?
right, no big changes there. The other than salaries and things like that, the big one was the veterans grave emblems that we kind of had a run on those, so we wanted a little bit more for this year.
Okay.
But that was like the main big one for mid-year.
Okay. And again, on your administration side of things, COVID-19 is not really affecting you here either, correct?
No, we've always, when all this hit, we've always been real religious about hand sanitizers and wiping down stuff with bleach wipes. So we had a lot of that stuff on hand. So that wasn't, where a lot of people were scrambling to find that. We don't have, protective equipment or anything like that. And we're still all working from the office because we all have individual offices too. So
okay,
not really affecting us, just a lot more email, phone calls, some snail mail. The VA's letting us use printed signatures, so we don't have to have wet signatures when we're submitting things electronically. So it's working out quite well for the situation.
Okay, good. So Rick, let's talk here. We've got, I'm showing right now your budget's that's coming in at $380,929, and it's up 7.16%. Overall, the net increase is a little over $25,000. Why don't I just have you address what's driving your costs up a little bit?
Yeah, we have a retirement that's coming up probably December, January time. So the post-employment health program, you can see that went way up just because of the sick pay payout, or I guess that's not the right term, but
yeah, right.
The sick leave balance, I guess I should say.
I'm gonna, when we were looking at this, I think of that 25,000 that we were talking about, 18 or 19 of it is strictly related to that retirement.
That's correct. Yep.
And so,
the other one was and David explained it to us and some of his people. Our city information services went up almost 1,900.
Yes. And
like you said, but they explained that all to us, so that wasn't a super shock or anything.
Right. And part of it is also, getting everybody over onto 365 so that we're on the same software package and all of that. But when you go down to Rick's post-employment health program, you will see the jump right there to show the retirement payout. So, so right now, Ringline, you've got 4 FTEs, correct?
Correct. And we have one employee that's going to resign at the end of this fiscal year.
Okay.
Planning for June 30th.
Okay, so you'll be refilling you'll be refilling 2 vacancies then? Am I following you right?
Right. One this fiscal year and then one next fiscal year.
Okay.
The one that's resigning this fiscal year, she hasn't been here a long time, and so there's not really any vacation or PEP balance.
Okay. So as far as technology fund requests, you're good for PCs and laptops and stuff like that?
Yeah, we like say we got I think just a couple of years ago we got everything brand new, so we should be good to go there.
Okay. So
Zoom tutorial maybe.
Yeah, I think we could all use that at some point in time. So as far as future upgrades and stuff like that, you're set pretty good for now?
Yeah, everything is, like you say, for the time frame we've been here, all the furniture and all that kind of stuff is holding up real well. It's been interesting since we haven't been seeing public in person. We're actually going through, and I shouldn't say we, it's mainly Karen and Rebecca have been going in and scanning all of our paper files. So they almost got all that done where we had like 12 filing cabinets. And so pretty soon there'll be 12 filing cabinets down to surplus property.
So do you think, by going through this, do you think some of your procedures will change?
Not really. I mean, the personal service is kind of what we thrive on. So if we can get back to that, that's what we would prefer. But I mean, as far as being downgrading of service, other than just that personal interaction, face to face, everything's working good.
Okay.
Or as best as can be under the situation.
Yeah, right. Okay, last thing from me is, and I'll just be kind of reminding each department as we go through here is, payroll system, new payroll systems coming. So over the next 6 months, you and your other 3 employees will be needing to go through some training on the different modules as we go through here. So Rick, it will really kind of be, you know, when a module comes out, we'll do training on that module. So there will be probably about 4 different training sessions as we kind of go through here, so that when we get to October 1, we're ready to go.
Okay, yep, sounds good.
Okay. So county board, other than that with Rick's, I don't have anything else.
Okay. Very good.
All right, thanks again, everybody. Appreciate it. Sorry for the delay.
All good. Thank you, Rick.
Thank you.
So that last thing I'll finish up with is just to kind of remind you, at any point in time now, when you're looking for stuff for budget hearings prior to, I will have them posted out here on the portal a few days in advance. So you'll have the ability to go out there and take a look at whatever you need. And then if you've got other questions or whatever, just let me know. What I'll also try to do on some of the departments that have maybe some other attachments, maybe with technology fund requests and stuff like that, I'll maybe have PDFs so that I can just jump into those PDFs without us going out trying to find them too. So I'll try to have everything so I can just, when I share my screen, we can pull up everything that we need.
Okay. Any questions for Dennis on this?
We asked him about it.
If you don't, I'll be returning on a weekly basis, sometimes twice a week. So you'll have plenty of opportunities.
You sound so excited.
All right. Thanks, Dennis.
Thank you.
All right. We'll talk to you
Look forward to
later.
seeing you.
Okay.
Okay. Are we, do we have everyone we need for Lancaster County Visitors Improvement Committee recommendations? I don't think we've got.
We have Jeff and Becky. We're both planning on attending, and they were going to try to log on a few minutes early. So I don't know if we have them here. There's Jeff.
Yep, we got Jeff right here.
Good morning, guys.
Hey there.
Morning.
I think Becky should be on here in the next minute or two if we could give her a little time yet.
Okay.
Yeah, we can wait 2 minutes or something.
Love your backdrop, Jeff.
Yeah, it's it's so true, and just part of some national efforts to really do our best to make sure that we postpone and don't cancel, and do our very best to get the norm back in the fall and spring. And yeah, I mean, who could have predicted this? And just trying to stay in touch with our tourism partners across the state, region, and country. And, you know, as much as we hear on the TV and news that we're all going through this together and these are challenging times, it's just hitting all of us in so many different ways. It's just impossible to even imagine that this was going to happen.
So how are you going to keep your kids involved with things now that summer baseball may be kind of closed down?
It's hard. My son's going to be playing Legion baseball this summer, and that's my hope. They had a call that after the May 31st team sports lid is lifted, we hope hopefully they can be on the field and be ready to play by the middle of June. Seems aggressive, Roma, but I hope that's the case, because I'm done coaching. I'm ready to be a dad and spit some seeds and put some flip-flops on and just enjoy the game from a different perspective.
Yep.
You've been coaching for how many years?
A long time. I mean, the group of boys we had in select baseball was 5 years, and then I coached off and on from the time my son could pick up a bat to when he could hit it off the tee. So yeah, it's been Roma, I'd tell you, with 5 of us at home and 3 teenagers, I can't wait for sports to get going again. I'll be real honest with you.
I'm sure.
Yeah. And there is no such thing as virtual baseball, right?
Yeah, I know. No, there's not. It's yeah, I'm kind of sick of saying virtual anymore, to be honest with you. That's all we can do. Look at us now. I mean, we're
Right.
just having fun and communicating the best we can with everybody. Sean, I enjoy hearing you on KFOR every few weeks.
Yeah, he keeps put me up there. So
Yeah, it's good to get your updates.
right.
I might not be the typical demographic for KFOR, but I do listen.
Right. Any sign of Becky here?
I don't see her. I'm going to text her real quick here and make sure. I know she was getting on. She said a few minutes early.
Yeah, sounds good. We'll give her another minute.
While we wait, can we do the action item or do we need Pam for that?
Oh, I think we can do the action item. You've already talked about it. It was just something that Jen Holloway wanted on there. So to follow up to a previous agreement that she'd already briefed the board about.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right.
Oh, I'm good with that.
I will move approval of the appraisal agreement.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? I'm not certain we have Commissioner Vest with us. Well,
you do have Engineer Dingman with you though.
very good. Is there anything you'd like to add on this, Engineer Dingman?
These are just appraisals for pieces of ground that we're having difficulty acquiring. So this is step one of the eminent domain process.
Very good. Commissioner Vest, we're doing the action item number 11. It's the contract with Hubert Appraisal Group. There's a motion and a second. Do you have anything to add on that?
No.
Okay, sounds good. Then if there's no further discussion, please call the roll.
Deb,
Yes.
Krista,
Yes.
Rick,
Yes.
Roma,
Yes.
Sean.
Yes.
5-0 motion carries.
Very good.
Hey, real quick, what number can Becky call in on? She might not be able to do it via Zoom.
Jamie, do you have that number?
Yeah, hold on a second. I know the one that came up, and I think it's the same number for each person. It's area code 253-215-8782. And she will need to enter webinar ID is 292-054-557.
Is that it?
Yeah. What's Becky's last name, Jeff?
Parrott, Perrett.
Okay. I'm pulling up her invite here real quick because it gives people a specific participant ID also. So her participant ID is 625882. Did she receive the invite okay?
Yeah, I believe so. She just sent me
okay.
She just sent me a note to resend the invite. So I can certainly, I'm okay with going ahead to keep you guys on agenda if you'd like me to start. And
I will click on her resend on the invite also, if that's all she needs. So she can do it either way.
Yeah, just resend it real quick for her.
Yep, I just did.
Let's go ahead and keep moving. But then if she shows up and could jump in, more the better.
Okay. Appreciate the opportunity to see all of your faces, but kind of give you an update where we are. The genesis of the conversation that we had that we're going to talk about with these next two items were my interest in trying to lead tourism through these difficult times through the end of the year. And one of which was to create some consistency on the BPC committee. I think it would be incredibly challenging to bring on new members to the VPC during this time. I really wanted to be able to lean back on a very strong committee that we currently have that has made some great decisions to lead tourism in our county, but also that we strongly consider that lodging tax collections for the next 3 to 6 months were going to be greatly affected by the virus and the ramifications. Of note is 85% of the people surveyed by Longwoods International have indicated that in the next 6 months, their travel is going to change drastically. And that's going to change from air to car, which is certainly good for a Midwest destination. And I'm excited about that. But from international to domestic. So I think what we do close to home will certainly benefit. And I think these changes that we're going to talk about will help solidify that. So we met via Zoom on April 23rd, and the group considered and unanimously passed a couple different options. The first two were regarding committee membership. Both Roland Morgan and Becky Parrott were scheduled to go off in June. They will have served 2 consecutive 4-year terms for the limit of 8. And the request to the county board is to waive the bylaws for the foreseeable future until December 31st to allow both of those individuals to keep their term. Becky as chair and Roland on the committee. And again, I think this is an important move to keep the consistency. And I believe both the county attorney and Carrie Egan have taken a look at this and agree that this is the best interest of the VPC committee in the future.
That is correct. Article 7 of your Visitors Promotion Committee bylaws allow you to waive any provision of the bylaws for good cause shown. So the way I would write the item is that you're waiving Article 3, Section 2 to extend the terms of Becky and Roland beyond the 2 consecutive terms that they are allowed to serve. So be a straightforward matter.
Jeff and Carrie, it's Becky. I'm here. My apologies. Board members, user error on my part. My apologies.
Glad to have you with us. I think Commissioner Yoakum had a comment.
Yeah, I mean, that makes complete sense during this time not to change horses in the middle of the stream here under these circumstances. Do we need to do a motion now, or is this a Tuesday item?
I'll roll it to Tuesday. We usually like to create the record on a Tuesday. There are other issues that we'll be bringing forward too.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. So Becky, I have covered item 1, both the extensions of Roland and yourself, and we're ready for item 2, and that would be Jeff Cunningham. Do you want to do that, or would you like me just to keep the conversation?
I'm happy to hop in. So in addition to that, Jeff Cunningham is completing a 4-year term. The committee entertained a motion to renew Jeff's service for a second 4-year term on the Visitor Promotion Committee through May 31st, 2024, and the motion passed 7-0.
Very good.
So that would roll to Tuesday as well.
And then the third item, the focus of the third motion of the committee meeting was the Visitor Improvement Fund grant program. With the future is unclear for most sectors of life and business right now, especially for tourism and attractions. We do not anticipate many requests for improvement funding, and since the budget outlook has grown even tighter with a decrease in lodging tax receipts, we proposed a suspension of the Improvement Fund grant program until December 31st, 2020. And the motion passed 7-0.
I would clarify on this that there are several outstanding loans that have previously been approved that we would still need to pay out. So given the nature of this recommendation, I think it would be best for me to draft a resolution giving the basis for it and specifying that it is for the new grants going forward for the rest of the year.
Works for me.
Sounds right.
Okay, and I'll put that on Tuesday as well.
If I could add real quick, is we only had 1 grant application that was considering during this cycle. Anybody else, I think, that was considering an application just decided that there probably wouldn't be anything to work with. So we did have one individual that I talked to, and they're going to seek other means to improve their facility. I think working with Dennis and Carrie, and they have been very, very helpful in the last 2 weeks, helping us understand what lodging tax projections will look like, to be able to freeze this fund until the end of the year, and at the direction of both the VPC and the county moving forward, will allow us to not only pay out the balances that are due, hopefully continue to work on that. But the important thing is you have to remember that there is a portion of this improvement fund money that is used for bid fees that will be a part of our budget request in June. And I do expect, and I have already looked at, significant cuts to the Convention and Visitors Bureau budget, many of which are pretty hard for me to stomach at this time. But it's the best thing we can do moving tourism forward, is to remain a viable entity when we come out of this in the very near future. I think Deb's on mute.
Oh.
I'm being Rick today. I continue to keep muting myself. Excuse me. I know that the Graduate, closed temporarily during this pandemic time. Are there other properties that have closed, and you had any conversations with them about reopening?
So the 3 that we know have closed completely and still have a very limited sales impact is the Cornhusker, the Graduate, and the Kindler. We have been in touch with all of our hotel partners in the city, various means, some of which have been able to apply for CARES Act loan funding, SBA loan funds to bring people back for I believe 8 weeks to get their hotels ready. But yeah, everybody's still operating outside of those 3. We're hearing occupancy, Deb, of anywhere from 10% to upwards of 55% occupancy, which is a ton given what we're going through right now. But I can tell you that a little hailstorm that we had in South Lincoln has been good for insurance adjusters coming into our community.
Oh, okay.
Hotel overnights, not to mention roofing companies and so forth. So we've seen quite a bit of growth, and we hope that they'll be able to come out of that very soon.
So are we hoping for more hail then? Is that...
Oh, I didn't say that.
Okay, all right.
But yeah, I can tell you, construction industry, roofing, rail, and there is still air traffic that's coming in and out of our community. So remember that last flight in at night, those airplane staff, pilots, and help staff have to have a place to stay. So they're still using certain hotels in our community.
Okay.
Very good. Does that also then, is there anything else we need to do here on this?
Nope, that's it. That completes my report.
Excellent.
Thank you. And Becky, thanks to you for continuing to stay on. The next, 6 months, 9 months are going to be challenging times, and it's great to have your continued leadership.
I think we're all glad.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Happy to assist.
And just for everybody's information, Runza has a 2-for special where you can get 2 full meals for less than $10 if a person's of mind. I know.
Every day from 5 to close. Thank you very much.
Very good. Okay.
All right.
Thank you for being with us.
Yep. Thank you, County Board.
Let's go ahead and move down. Let's move down to traffic devices associated with South Beltway and Engineer Dingman.
So you may notice that there are 2 Pam Dingmans listed on the screen today, and there are not truly 2 Pam Dingmans, but Larry Legg is
one Pam Dingman is quite enough.
Enough. Think what we could get done, Commissioner Shore. Think what we could get done. It would be extraordinary. That being said, Larry Legg can push out just as much engineering as I can on any given day. So that's as close as we can come to having 2 Pam Dingmans. He is on the call with me. I noticed, Larry, that you're currently muted.
Yes, I was.
Okay, so Larry, and this is really one of, I don't know if I should say Larry's baby, but this is Larry's traffic issue. And so as the board may or may not be aware, Larry was involved at Nebraska Department of Transportation, kind of in and around the South Beltway project for a number of years. We have a number of things that, well, actually for my entire tenure here, we've been attempting to coordinate the construction of the Beltway, and now we're here. And so we do have some things that we're going to have to change on our systems, and Larry is prepared to talk about the traffic control devices that we would like to have on the board agenda next week, as well as devices that are going to have to be installed at a few other locations. Larry?
Morning, everyone. Now, I'm going to first preface that Monday, as part of the Lincoln South Beltway construction, they're going to be closing 68th Street. Okay, and instituting a detour. I'll put up a graphic here and share it with you in just a second, but I have basically three separate items that I'm going to display for you. One is the detour map. I'll talk about that a little bit. The second would be a engineering study that does a little bit of analysis on why we want to do what we want to do. And then the third is a typical of what we're going to do. I did not have the map ready of where we actually are going to place the signs, and that wasn't quite ready yet for this. It will be ready for you on Tuesday to have and be able to view. So I'm going to share my screen. We'll see how successful this is. And right there. Okay, what this should be, does everybody see basically a gray screen that has a detour on it and some daily traffic stuff on it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we can see it.
Great. That means I successfully navigated some technology here. Okay, as I pointed out, they're going to close 68th Street at Saltillo. 68th Street has approximately, when school's in, I think, I don't know, a lot of traffic. I'll have to get to my memos before I don't have it memorized. There's quite a bit of traffic. All that traffic is going to be diverted down 56th Street. And then they're going to go, if they want to go south, they're going to go over to 54th and then down, and we're taking them down to Roca Road, and then we can put them back on 68th. Well, what that's going to do is the intersection of Saltillo and 54th is going to have a lot of people wanting to turn left, with the understanding Saltillo is still open. So we still have 5,000 to 6,000 vehicles a day traveling down Saltillo. This was a busy intersection before we pushed all the 68th Street over to it. So with that, this is a traffic engineering study that my staff completed, I've reviewed and approved. It consists of 4 basic parts. There's an introduction telling you a little bit about what's going on. They discuss the existing and future study area and some of the traffic volumes and what's going on, which is a second part of it.
Back up. How did that say there? How long it's estimated to be closed in that paragraph you zip by?
Yeah, if you look at the bottom down here, about beginning in May of 2020. Here it is, May of 2020. And I can get you more detail on that. I think December of this year is when they plan on opening them back up.
Because I remember at that public meeting that we were at, like the night before COVID hit,
yes.
They said that they would not close any one of those 3 major roadways at the same time, correct?
That is correct. That was part of the environmental commitments. Okay. That they could not close an adjacent roadway. So if 68th closed, 54th has to be open, and 82nd has to be open.
Okay.
So, those are, and those are the main thoroughfares. This is probably something we should have realized, the conflicts that are going to be happening at 54th and Saltillo, a high volume of left turners, a high volume of people wanting to go through. and only 2 blocks worth of stacking distance in between where 56th comes onto Saltillo
Yeah.
and to where it turns south again. But
Right.
you'll have this prior to the Tuesday meeting. I'm going through and making sure everything's correct again. I'll get it stamped and I'll get it sent to Jen Holloway so she can get it to y'all. Then it talks about the existing traffic volumes in the areas that we're talking about. And then it lays out conditions for an always stop, which is what we're recommending at this intersection and also at the other intersections. It lays out the from the manual on uniform traffic control devices. They have warrants or recommendations based upon the traffic volume and the conflicts. Does that. And then the last paragraph is our recommendation, which it comes down to, we will be recommending an always stop be put at 54th and Saltillo. And to move on to the others in this, at 54th and Roca, where traffic turns and goes back to the east, and then at 68th and Roca, to where traffic goes back and can turn south, continue south on 68.
Okay, I do have a question. I drove down on Saltillo yesterday, and so the stop sign, will there be a stop sign at all area, just at 54th, or will it also be on Saltillo?
It'll be an always stop. So all people that come into the intersection of Saltillo and 54th, they will stop before they proceed through that intersection. So we already have a stop sign on 54th.
Right,
We're adding a stop sign on Saltillo eastbound and on Saltillo westbound.
Just wanted to make sure on that. Okay.
Yeah, and then also in to make sure people see them, we're actually going to put the stop signs that have the flashing beacons on them. So it'll be a stop sign with a red beacon on top that flashes to let people know we're also grinding rumble strips or placing rumble strips to wake people up. And since Monday, we've had message boards out telling people that on May 4th, this will be an always stop intersection.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the thing. And okay, now I understand this is a 4-way intersection, but this is what typical signage for an always stop intersection is. This will be part of the packet that you also receive for your board meeting on Tuesday. You see, we have a stop sign, an always stop sign. We have rumble strips here. We have a stop ahead sign here. We won't be putting this sign out. That's just a notification that there will be a stop sign placed. We
currently do have electronic boards out in this location, so people are aware.
Right. So like right here, the PDMS is portable dynamic message sign. That's our variable message boards that have been up since Monday. So we won't be putting stop ahead on the pavement. We are placing rumble strips. So this is a typical of what we will have. Instead of flags, we'll have actually a flashing beacon above the stop sign.
Larry, going back to the increased traffic on 54th and just driving it, from memory, how many property owners are going to be affected by the increased traffic? There isn't a whole lot along there, is there?
No, there's, and there again, from my memory, I do know a lot of it is taken up by the Gaina limestone pit or disposal pit down there. And then there's also that rock, decorative rock business that occupy the east side. The bulk of it is probably beyond that is farmland. There's not high development in that area. There are some, but
so it's mainly trucking that's going to have an issue with the increased traffic, just because they have so much truck traffic in and out of that access point.
Right, and we have had some communication with them. They know this is coming. I would hope that they try to provide guidance and do alternative routes. But frankly, that's one reason why we also feel that the always stop at 54th is so important, that you do have a high volume of trucks that seem to want to use that intersection.
And then I would just add that, you know, the cost of these flashing beacons, they are solar. They have come down in cost a little bit over the years. They're still probably somewhere between $1,000 and $1,200 a piece. And so they're not the cheapest thing to install. But again, we're trying to make sure that we get people's attention with the sign and the beacon. I also noticed that we do have some of our friends from the sheriff's office who've joined us. And so I don't know, Terry, if there was anything that you guys wanted to say in regards to the new signs.
Well, I just, one of the things I worry about is westbound traffic on Saltillo approaching 54th. It's the crest of that hill. That's where we've had a couple of our fatal crashes out there have been at 54th with cars coming over that hill from the east to west. And with the stop sign there, I'm thinking to myself, if somebody is not familiar with that area, if they haven't seen the message boards that are out now and they're just cruising along at 50 miles an hour, they're going to top that hill, and then it's panic time.
Larry, there's also a speed reduction in this area during the construction of the South Beltway. Is that correct?
There can be. We've already had the speed limit has been lowered in this stretch to, I think 50. This is where we lowered it to 50 mile an hour.
Right.
Right.
As part of the detour plan, we did not include a lowered speed limit. And Terry, I guess that's one thing that if we start seeing some violations of that, perhaps we could consider a work zone speed limit to even drop it down to 45.
Could you put a stop ahead just above the crest of the hill on the other side of the hill?
Yeah, I would have to look at the topography and see. I see no problem.
Yeah, because I just drove it the other day, and the 54th Street is right just a little bit at the base of the hill. People coming over that real fast, they would have a tough time to stop. And so I would think that a stop ahead sign might be pretty good.
So I just want to remind everybody that in order for these signs to be legal, we have to follow the Manual of Uniform Traffic Control Devices, which doesn't necessarily mean how we feel. Larry and I will go ahead and take a look at the crest of the hill there, because I think that the Sheriff's Department has made a good point. We'll look at that as well as we'll look at the speed limits in this area. And I think that, like many of our construction sites, what we do is we do monitor behavior, and we do monitor accidents. I mean, it's interesting as engineers, we spend a lot of time trying to lay out the best detour routes and the best signage for these things. And yet, when we go to do construction, we usually find that people find their own detours, and there's sometimes some intriguing driver behavior with those detours. And so we'll probably be coming to you with sign and speed limit requests associated with the Beltway several times over the next 18 to 24 months would be my guess.
And we do have some flexibility about where we do place the stop ahead sign. And, with the topography out there, the crest of the hill, it might be something that and I'll have to check the MUTCD to see if we can, maybe we would add some type of flags or something to draw attention to the stop ahead. That's good information. We'll have to check and see what we can do, what the recommendations are. But I do know there are methods you can use to increase the conspicuity of the signs, is what they term it.
Pam, the flashing notification signs you mentioned that were somewhat expensive, but we'll be able to reuse those all during this project and then in other locations, correct?
Well, as you know, as the roads would open back up, there's the possibility that we could reuse some of them. And of course, we reuse as much of our stuff as possible, Commissioner Shore. I think that we ordered 12 of them.
Okay.
And they were, you know, they were a little bit of a back order, so we're fortunate. I think they just came in last week. And we'll have to see how, again, we're going to have to see how people respond to these. Our goal is to make this road safer during all the detour. You know, we've all driven in detours, and you find yourself getting a little antsy, and maybe your driver behavior isn't the best because now you're later for something than you thought you would be, and we all have a tendency to lose patience with detours. So we're just going to have to see how the driver behavior matures down here, so for lack of a better term.
Well, it is a blessing we're doing it at this time, that we don't have the normal school traffic that would be impacted the last couple of weeks of school.
We've been blessed with a lot of our construction the last couple of weeks. At the same time, I will tell you, there's less drivers, but for some reason, people right now think they don't have to adhere, because there's less traffic. People think they don't have to adhere to the traffic devices and speed limits. And so there's been some interesting things that have gone on out in the county.
To the reuse, yes, if it's appropriate and if there's a place for them, we can reuse these for this. Frankly, we can use them if we have some other issues that become apparent in other parts of the county. But we want to keep them handy and available for this. You know, we have the laid out detours and we have the contractor's schedule, but these contractors sometimes change their schedule, it seems, on a whim. But we want to be able to react to that and have the resources that we need. I'll take a good look at the speed and placement of that stop ahead sign and see where we're at with it. I think that's probably a good idea. I believe the MUTCD allows for variable spacing. The important thing with the stop ahead sign, you don't want to put it far enough back so that people forget that they saw it.
Right, right.
And you know, I hate to say that, but I've done that before. You know, you go down, everybody's busy, everybody's thinking, you see a stop ahead. Oh yeah, stop ahead. But if you drive too far, and then all of a sudden it's, oh shoot, there's a stop sign.
Yeah.
Well,
Commissioner,
at that particular juncture of the road, you're coming up over the crest of the hill. You've got 56th Street coming in, and then you have 54th Street coming, you know, just a couple of streets down. So there's a lot of stuff going on right at that intersection.
And as Larry stated, Roma, Larry and I are aware of the complex geometry of Saltillo as a whole. I mean, we're still pushing our safety project to try to get that in. We're hoping that there is some sort of break in the schedule for the Beltway, and maybe we can slide in the Saltillo project while Saltillo's already closed. We don't know as though that's going to happen, but you know, you can always have a hope. The other thing that I would like to say in regards to the Sheriff's Department's concerns is that this one snuck up on us a little faster than we anticipated with some of the other things that are going on. And Larry and I will try to reach out to the Sheriff's Department next time to discuss these in advance, because I do know that these are going to be, you know, this area with traffic enforcement and driver behavior is going to be a little sticky. So.
Okay. Well, it's 11:30. Were there any other questions for Engineer Dingman or her staff here? If not, we'll go ahead and move on. Thank you for being here with us. So next up is COVID-19 update and response. The first item was temperature checks. And I know Director Lopez is going to try to jump in here with us shortly.
So I just wanted to briefly talk with you about temperature checks. Sean, you probably hear them talk about it in their unified command that they have pushed out temperature check policy to the city. We have some of our groups doing temperature checks already. The jail is doing temperature checks. A crisis center and youth services, and I believe they have their medical personnel doing those checks. We're having a meeting on Monday with HR, county attorney, Rick and Sean will be there to talk about kind of some reopening policies, and this temperature check discussion will be part of that and how we're going to facilitate it. There's some concerns about how to do it, the PPE we need to do it, that sort of thing. Sheriff Wagner and Jerry Whitty had some things that they wanted to share with you about the temperature checks. Terry,
Sure,
you
please.
ready?
Okay, yep, okay. Yesterday when I was chatting with Carrie, this topic came up in that we were considering an infrared camera for the front of the Hall of Justice that will take people's temperature and display it on a monitor. And I just heard on the news that an airport in Washington State is doing that for people before they go through a security checkpoint at airports. So I think this is expensive technology, but as Jerry and I have spoken, he can fill you in on the technology and the particulars, but this would be a great way to avoid having hands-on from our employees to people coming into our building. And then if people are over 100.4 or whatever threshold we set, that they can be turned away and encouraged to seek medical attention. So that's sort of you've all seen infrared footage from like helicopters or drones or those kinds of things, and it senses the heat signature of a certain object. State Patrol's helicopter has it, and you've all seen that. So that's kind of the basic technology, but this is a lot more sophisticated in that it can sense that target temperature. Jerry, you want to jump in and fill in the particulars there?
Yeah, sure. So the technology is FLIR technology, forward-looking infrared. And the sheriff is right. Most of that technology in the past, it's been around since the 70s, but most of that technology has been used for target acquisition and identification. They also use that infrared technology to find heat traces inside of machinery. So taking human temperatures is something that's relatively recent. In 2003, FLIR started making devices that do this to combat the SARS outbreak that was in Asia at the time. So when we went to looking for some solutions on trying to find technology to take people's temperature, we were looking for something that is accurate and it's made for taking human temperatures, something that's going to be safe to connect to our city county network, and something that can be operated remotely. And connecting it to our network is actually a trick because so many of these devices are made in China, and a lot of them have bots that are installed in them for updates, but they do report back to somewhere. And
Right.
that's definitely not something we would hook to our network. The FLIR company is made in America. It meets the federal guidelines for military contracts. So it passes all of those security measures that we're looking for. As you can imagine, every meat packing plant and office building in the nation is looking at this technology right now. We do have somebody from FLIR International because we do have a relationship with them in the past. The sheriff's office has used FLIR technology for over 20 years. We have thermal imagers here, but not used for this purpose. But we have a relationship with these people, and they are assuring us that we can be put in the front of the queue for public safety reasons. But their technology is expensive. For an application for the Hall of Justice, it would be somewhere around $16,000. and something for the county city building would be somewhere around $10,000. I would envision that the county city building would be more of a portable device that could be put, for instance, in front of the council chambers, and we could check people's temperatures before they came into the council meeting. Certainly, I don't want to bore you with a whole lot of technical stuff, but I'm happy to answer any questions you might have regarding FLIR or that sort of technology.
Commissioner Yoakum?
Sorry, raise my hand and then I'm on mute. I'm glad you brought this up because I've been curious about that, because I know some of the meatpacking plants, of course, a couple of them had already installed that back in mid-March, and some of the ones that we know are having better outcomes right now had installed that, and of course everyone else is interested in it. So, but what I was curious about was the accuracy, and you're assured that the accuracy is good on those.
Right. So there are a lot of companies that are making a lot of different things, and previously they may have been using these thermal imagers to detect heat signatures inside machinery, for example, and now they're repackaging it and saying that it is good enough for taking human temperatures. Most of them are not. There's very few of them that are actually designed for taking human temperature. That's why it's so expensive. As you can imagine, if you were in line to be screened at the Hall of Justice and somebody got cut from the line and they were told that they had an elevated temperature, that's going to be upsetting to that person, and it's going to be very upsetting to all of the other people in the line. So it's really, really important for us to make sure that this is accurate, and it's a presumptive test anyway. So if it did pop that somebody had a temperature, then we would have to use a touchless thermometer to verify what we're seeing through the technology. But it's really important for me to make sure that they're accurate. The $16,000 unit that I'm looking at is plus or minus 1 degree. And they're assured me that if it's set up and calibrated correctly, it's less than a half of a degree, generally speaking.
Commissioner Amundson?
With this particular device, is there a warranty that comes with it?
Oh, I'm sure there is. Like I said, we have had a relationship with FLIR for over 20 years. Certainly, they've been around since 1978, and they've been a good partner for us. There's no reason to expect that they wouldn't honor any sort of warranty, but I guess I haven't gotten that far into it.
Well, I actually have had some experience with the FLIR technology too, through the military, and it is really very, very good.
I used it in my fighting or in my firefighter training originally. It's good tech. I love this if we can do it. What's the legal implications of it?
So from my research, I'm no attorney, but from my research, it appears that it is capable of being used in a screening process like I would be suggesting. The problem comes when using infrared technology on private property. It requires court orders and search warrants. Certainly, this technology has the ability to invade people's privacy to a pretty extreme measure. I think some of the court cases in the past have mostly centered around law enforcement trying to find grow operations inside buildings.
Right.
And certainly the devices that we would be using would be solely for screening people, and it would be a voluntary thing. If somebody didn't want to be screened, then certainly they could leave the building and reschedule whatever they wanted to do later. There wouldn't be any sort of arrest or anything like that if somebody didn't comply.
Right. What about situations where someone's coming in because they've got court? I mean,
right. So
I want to make sure that we're not, turning someone away and then suddenly there's a bench warrant going out for them for not showing up to court.
Right. We're dealing with that right now. So the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court has signed an order saying that if you have any of the COVID symptoms, you should reschedule your court. And we have signs in our entryway explaining how to do this. Certainly, we have had people that have come in who appear to be ill and coughing, and perhaps have even said that they are currently being tested for COVID-19, and we have turned them away. And it's as simple as calling the court and getting it rescheduled. The court has already ordered that they're going to allow this, and they've been very, very flexible in making that happen.
Okay. Any chance of us getting on the wrong side of HIPAA with this? I mean, technically, we're collecting health information.
That is my concern, frankly. I'm glad you bring it up.
It was my first concern when I heard about this. The first thing I thought about was I'm worried about HIPAA with it.
So the way I hope that it would work is that somebody would come through the screening. We would say, hey, why are you here? Where are you headed to? And we verify that they do have an elevated temperature. I think that the HIPAA would get involved if somebody told me, said, I'm here to see the mayor. I have an appointment. And if I called the mayor and I said, Joe Blow here has an elevated temperature, and identifying human with medical condition, I think that probably could get us in trouble. But we do need to kind of sort that out. I think that there's ways that we could say a person with an elevated temperature is coming for their 3 o'clock meeting, for example, and I think that complies with HIPAA. But it is one of those things that we're really brushing up close to it, and I would need to have the county attorney work with me to get a policy on how we're going to do that.
I'm not an attorney either, but I've spent a bunch of time with HIPAA, and I'm almost positive that just by identifying the 3 o'clock appointment, that we could be in trouble with that. I think you'd be safe with saying, hey, someone with an elevated temperature who is coming for an appointment, you might be able to get away with that. But even a designator like the time of the appointment might run into problems. So that's a fine line we're walking.
Well, we're not a healthcare provider,
right?
And so I think HIPAA pertains more to healthcare providers than it does to us. So.
Well, and if I could, Jerry, you were just talking about, the $16,000 piece of equipment and maybe a $10,000. I mean, I think about, I'm just going to say Kim Atherton's building, for lack of a better term. I mean, there are a lot of people that go in and out that, and then also, motor vehicle testing and, driver's license, and normally a lot of people in the election commissioner's office. How are we deciding we're just going to focus on one or maybe two locations and not put protections in other places for other employees and people doing government business?
I was thinking about the health department on that one. Yeah.
Yep. We've thought about that as well. And certainly the jail is another. And there's a lot of different governmental entities that could use this sort of technology. What we're looking for, I guess, on our end is the things that we are either statutorily driven to provide security for, or we have an interlocal agreement. So in my world, in the sheriff's office, that means the county city building and the Hall of Justice, and also the 605 building. But for the drug testing over at 605, they get pretty up close and personal. Same with the jail, because they're doing the breath testing and the different things like that. They're also taking the person's temperature with a touchless thermometer. They really don't have the need to do it as remotely as perhaps we would like to. And I think the jail is kind of in that same boat too, although Brad is considering maybe a way for him to be able to use this technology too.
Well, and nor do they have the volume of people coming through those facilities that we do. We'll have about 1,300 people a day come through the Justice and Law Enforcement Center security checkpoint. So that's another factor. And
right, and certainly there are other types of scanners too that can be used other than these cameras. Some of those scanners require a 4 or 5 second pause in the line in order to scan that person. Yeah. And that creates a bit of a problem. 1,300 people on a good day, 2,300 people on a jury term. So we do move a lot of people through the front door in the course of a day.
Right.
Agreed.
Right. Okay, is there any more discussion on this? I don't want to keep Director Lopez any longer than we have to. I know she's, kind of leading the charge for the whole community, so I want to be respectful of her time.
Sean.
Yeah.
So just a little bit from our legal counsel when we talked about this a little bit yesterday. If that's for the Hall of Justice, it will of course have to run through PBC.
Right. I
So
assumed that was the reason for our PBC friends.
yes, well, partly. And then we'll need to talk about it more in our Monday meeting.
Okay. All right. Karen, are you okay if we wait to talk about plexiglass dividers for 1 second? We jump over to an update from Pat Lopez.
Karen's on mute.
Karen's on mute.
I'm fine.
Okay, cool. Director Lopez, then, thank you for being with us.
Hi, good morning, everyone. It's almost afternoon. I won't keep you very long, but I did want an opportunity to update you. I think you've seen that the governor intends to issue a different directed health measure for Lancaster County, Three Rivers Health Department, and West Central District Health Department. We're looking at our numbers now. We've been in communication with him, and we have a call every Friday. We understand his desire to open further and put some other guidance in place. We've been working on guidance, and you'll see it's up on the COVID website now. So hopefully, I know the county has a link to that site. So there's guidance for restaurants, nail salons, massage. We worked with leaders in all those areas and other places across the country to look at what the best practice was and the science base behind it. So we put those on the website, and we're asking the public to make comments, suggestions for us so that we can further define those. I understand that the governor is going to be releasing some guidance, but we haven't seen that yet. He'll be talking about faith-based today, I believe, at his news conference. We haven't seen the guidance developed for that yet, but we do have some guidance documents available that we're going to work with our faith community on and get their input. We have been getting input from various members of the faith community related to that. One of the biggest things that's happening, as you probably noticed, our test number, our positive cases are ramping up. We had 4 cases when we started out early this morning, or 9, and now our cases are up to 230. So we anticipate we'll have more today. There was an issue with testing results getting back into the queue for us, but we're also doing a much larger volume of testing. So having more positives is expected. We're seeing about 1/3 of our cases related to the Smithfield plant in Crete. So there's close to probably, I'm thinking, over 100 cases that are related to that total between Saline and Lincoln Lancaster. So Bryan Health has been going down there and doing testing with their mobile unit in addition to the National Guard. We're also working, we are getting 150 tests a day to be used in the community from LabCorp through the state. So that's being set up with Bryan and CHI, St. Elizabeth, and we're getting those tests out. We're looking at some specific locations in the city we want to work on too, but we do have, we have identified some areas where we have individuals that might not be able to easily access tests that we're going to go to. We're reviewing, I just want to let you know too that we keep in close contact with our child cares. We're talking with them about what's happening there. We've been talking with restaurants. We've been talking with long-term care. We're doing work with the schools. You'll hear a little bit about it today, but the schools are actually, they helped us set up the site at North Star. They manage all the things out there related to that. We have school people that are developing what we call the Brock smock. Our team came up with a Tyvek spot to gown, since there's such a gown shortage. And so they have people that are the people who cut out the pattern, and then those things are taken to the sewers and they're being sewed. We also are receiving face coverings from Duncan Aviation, which has been a tremendous help for us in the community. And the decon site is set up now, one of them, and we'll be opening up another one. So we're picking up N95s and gowns to be decontaminated at the site now. And that serves all of Southeast Nebraska, but we're doing a lot of work with our physicians and the hospitals and assisting them. That helps us because PPE is still an issue. So, and you'll hear, elective surgeries are supposed to start up again. Our healthcare systems are doing a modified approach, and they're trying to be the same across the board in how they're approaching that. They're going to go forward for 2 weeks in this phase 1 that they're doing, and they really the intention is nobody would be in-house longer than 24 hours. So the demand for PPE or blood, they're considering all those things that could create a problem. We still have a large number of people coming into our community. Our health systems serve a lot of the surrounding areas. And I think I may have mentioned that before, but in our surge plan, we worked with those critical access hospitals and those health departments, and we worked out a process. So if we're able to provide for the acutely ill on the ventilators and other things, that as people are convalescing, we can move them back to their critical access hospital to free up beds as we need them. St. E's has been receiving, you all seen what's happening in Grand Island and Dakota County and Lexington, which is very, sobering. The number of deaths there in the strain, I see our health director there and some of the staff, and it's really painful to watch what's happening to people. So that's not where we don't want to be in that situation, but we're taking people both at CHI and Bryan but our capacity is good. We monitor it every day. We have modeling, the Washington modeling that's been used, the Murray model it's often called, but we actually insert our own data in there so we can see if we're getting at capacity in any one measure, beds, ventilators, deaths, any of those areas. And then we're also using, there's some models out there from Johns Hopkins and Bloomberg that we've been following for some time as evidence-based to help us guide about what it would mean to open up. And I think if any of you probably heard all this, so I hope I'm not repeating, but we're looking at our cases, and if we have a plateau or if we're still on the climb, we're looking at our positivity rate, which is going up right now. We're looking at our bed capacity, healthcare system capacity. We're looking at our ability to do contact tracing, our investigations, and those are things we do all the time anyway, but in a more ramped up method. And we've reached out with the school, and we're going to be using some of the school nurses to work with us on that. So those are, I'm trying to give you just a few of the highlights. Oh, and we meet every week with our primary care physicians. We do a Zoom meeting to kind of hear to learn more about what their concerns are. And I think I mentioned we've been working with long-term care as well. So I'll stop there.
Yeah, Commissioner Shore.
A question, Pat, when you talked about, the plant in Crete and, what they're seeing there, it affects our numbers because they are Lancaster County residents, or it's affecting our numbers because they're being hospitalized in Lancaster County?
No, we have a lot of people who live in Lincoln that commute out to other areas.
Okay.
So the Crete numbers, our numbers are right at, well, I should say at 8:15 this morning. I knew we had about 25 of our positive cases that were related to Crete and some household members, but I know that's grown.
Okay.
And one thing that just needs to be noted is, we had a couple days there where we had like one new case, or a day where I think I had 0 new cases. At the same time, those were the same days that we were ramping up testing like crazy. We kind of suspected that maybe the data that we were receiving wasn't as accurate as it might have been, because if you're suddenly doing 500 tests, or 500 more additional tests and only getting one positive result, we thought maybe some of the data there was strange. So the big jump we just took yesterday afternoon, I think that was frankly more an issue of data collection.
And we're doing close to 300 tests a day, or well over close to 200. So we'll see some increase, but then also it's going to help us in a decision-making process as a community too.
Right. So any questions for Director Lopez?
Just one more question, Pat, that you mentioned the masks that you're receiving from Duncan. Are the ones that are being sewn at the jail?
No, I think those are actually other ones that are being.
Okay.
There's quite a bit going on with the face coverings, so.
Good to know.
Very good. Well, Director Lopez, thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Please let me know if you have any questions about anything. We're trying to be very responsive to you. We know you get a lot of, as commissioners, you have a lot of constituents that have concerns and questions. So please don't hesitate anytime I just want to make sure you have the information you need.
Well, you and your staff take care of yourselves during this time too. The stress has got to be immense.
It's all day, every day working through things. So, but we have a great team. And I always say, I remind my fellow health directors, we have tremendous support from our commissioners and our city council.
Commissioner Robinson, yeah. Roma, you're on mute.
I do have one more question, Pat. Are you hearing anything from the smaller communities around Lincoln at all? Everything we've been hearing is from Lincoln, but is there anything going on in some of the smaller communities?
No, we hear from them. We count that all as, we don't differentiate between Lancaster or the city. So.
Okay, I just was wondering, yeah.
No, we haven't had anything like, for example, Roma, we haven't had some concerns going on in Waverly or some of the other areas.
Okay, thank you.
Very good.
And we try to maintain good contact.
Oh, absolutely. I know you do, Pat. Thank you.
You and your team are doing a great job, Pat. Just keep it up.
You got a great team here. We're lucky.
Yeah.
Thank you all. Thank you for all you're doing.
We'll see you soon, Pat.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for the update. Jumping back, and Sheriff, thanks for sticking with us. Sorry to interrupt that. Was there anything else we needed on temperature checks?
Well, we just kind of really want, we're going to go before the Public Building Commission. I think that's Monday. Isn't that right? For that meeting, but we just want some direction from you all. And, we're concerned about our areas of responsibility. Your concern is about all of Lancaster County buildings. And, if you want us to explore this technology and make a recommendation on what might be best and how we're going to pay for it, is it going to be reimbursable through FEMA? There are some questions that need to be answered. But I think, we're willing to at least do a little bit of the shopping. And to be honest, I believe there is a bit of urgency here because everybody else in the nation is going to be ordering these things too. And if we don't jump on the bandwagon pretty quick, it's going to be 6 months before we can get them. Right.
I definitely think it's worth exploring. If I think there's some legal questions to
That's
to address, but yeah.
I think that would be good to go forward to explore the cost if there's anything such as a bulk purchase.
I'm sorry, as far as what, Roma?
A bulk purchase.
Oh, a bulk
If we
pur- okay.
bought a lot of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But,
Yeah.
but then you would need staff to oversee all of that. So it's not just the equipment. It would be, you know, the reallocation of staff, but
You know, one of the reasons why we're exploring this is, you know, obviously it's our responsibility, but we also have the staff dedicated.
Right.
That it would dovetail very nicely into their normal duties. We
Right.
don't have that staff at other facilities. And that's another decision for you all, about where you want to go with this stuff. But if you are going to require every employee to have their temperature taken when they come to their workplace, somebody's got to do that. Somebody's got to do that. And so, you know, that's just a choice that you all have to make, I guess.
Right. And we haven't even started on that discussion.
Okay.
Right. Commissioner Amundson.
Yeah, and I guess I have another question. You know, this thing is not going to last forever. Does a company that has FLIR, do they have any type of a provision for rentals? I mean, that's just a thought. You know what I mean?
Well, I appreciate what you're saying. If I owned a FLIR, I'd say no, but I don't have a clue. Jerry, do you know?
No, I don't either. But I mean, I just was wondering if that would be something, or I know that the military has got some things. I don't know if that would be appropriate necessarily for what it is that you're talking about. But you know, I understand the human the aspect of being safe and everything like this, you know. And Deb brought up a very good point. Well, then how do we determine which ones we're actually working with? And it could amount to a tremendous fiscal impact. It really, really could. And that's not to say that human life and so forth that is our primary concern. But you know, this is not going to last forever.
Yeah. We're running up against the clock here pretty badly. I'm going to ask the Sheriff's Department to look into this further, come back to the board and make a recommendation. Does that work for everybody?
Yes.
Thank you.
Sheriff, is that enough direction?
You bet. Yeah, that's enough for now. We can certainly get more facts and figures.
Okay, and please be talking to the PBC staff about this as well as you move forward, just so that they have an idea as well.
Yep, we'll do.
Okay, Karen, did you have anything to add on this?
No.
No. Well, Captain Whitty or Karen Peterson.
I had a conversation with Captain Whitty yesterday, and so I am aware that he's looking into the devices, and we will certainly make room on our agenda for presentation, sir.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Then we will move on then to the purchase of counter screens and plexiglass dividers.
Okay, so Bob had sent me some information, and so did Corey. And Sarpy County used a company out of Omaha that gave him a way better price than what Bob was getting quoted. A dozen from this company in Omaha is $57.40, which is pretty reasonable. They do have some stock, but she didn't really want to wait too long. I think we just need an idea of how many and how we want to go about that. Karen, can that be something that your people put in? I don't know how that works for sure.
Oh, we could certainly work with the install. The busiest person in my department right now is my master carpenter. He is fabricating some permanent type structures out at both 46 and R Street and on West O Street, excuse me, for the county treasurer's office. Those devices and those screening things she wants to have as in permanent, so it's a little bit different. But she was also looking at some temporary things at the downtown location as well. So yes, as far as install, the short answer is yes, we can be helpful.
So would you just want me to send out an email to our departments and ask how many they'd like? Oh wait, Corey just emailed me and said $57.40 each. Although the email she sent me said a dozen would be $57.40 each. So maybe they are $57.40 each. That's the price if we order a dozen.
Well, we're going to need at least a dozen.
Yeah.
I would think
Bob
so.
Bob told me that that's a much better price than what he was quoted. So it feels like that could be okay.
Well, let's explore it
Oh,
then.
Corey's here. She can clarify.
Yep, Corey.
I wasn't clear on what you said. I was thinking, I wanted to clarify $57.40 each.
If you buy a dozen.
Yep,
If you
we
buy
got
a
it.
dozen.
Okay.
We got it.
That's dollars and cents.
Okay.
Yes.
So
$57.
what direction do you need here then?
Do you just want me to reach out to departments and ask
Yes.
how many they need?
Right.
Do it.
And then get
Right.
with Karen to work on the installs?
Right. And what's reasonable? I mean, we don't want to be ordering hundreds and hundreds of these things. So
No, like the county assessor probably doesn't need any right now. I won't speak for
Right.
them for sure, but since they're
Right.
not in their typical office space, I don't know that they'll need any.
right.
Yep.
Okay.
But I'll definitely reach out and get started on that.
Sounds good. FMLA discussion is our next item.
Okay, so some of this we have been able to clarify and work through. There was a little bit of a miscommunication with HR regarding one of the people that we were having the biggest concern about. But I wanted to just touch base with you and make sure that you all had the same understanding, because initially my understanding, and I think some of our department heads had the same understanding, which was that this leave was separate and would not be FMLA. But what I've been told since is that if they are ill, or if they end up caring for someone that's ill, it is FMLA. So it will be counted towards their FMLA hours.
And who made that decision?
Well, that's what Christy told me is the federal guidelines for it, and that's what HR is now implementing. But I don't think that was our overall understanding when we started this, and so I don't think that's what we've communicated to our departments.
I thought FMLA took over after the pandemic leave that we put in place initially.
That's not the understanding that I've walked away from our legal and our HR with at this point. So we potentially have a situation where if somebody were to get sick, they were to get COVID, we're kind of dinging them. Even though we're giving them this free leave, it's still counting against their FMLA hours, which I just want to make sure that you're all aware. I don't know that there's anything we can do to change it at this point. If those are the federal guidelines, those are the federal guidelines.
Right.
We might need to reframe what we're communicating with directors, because I don't think that that's not what my understanding was. It doesn't sound like that's what your understanding was.
You're
was
right.
Okay.
No, it wasn't my understanding. And I'm not saying that if that's what the feds are doing, maybe our hands are tied. Maybe that's just the way it is. But can we say for Tuesday, maybe have HR and the attorneys here, and
yeah, and I think we could
clarifying
even
discussion on it.
Absolutely, and we could try and work it into our meeting on Monday too, if you want. But if you'd like to have it on Tuesday, that'd be great.
Well, I'd like the whole board to be able to be
sure.
with it.
Thank you.
Yep. So.
Yeah, I'd like to hear that. Yeah, thank you.
Absolutely. Okay, so that puts us at 12:09. That was the last thing we had, right?
Yes.
Okay.
I will move, we adjourn.
Second.
We're not
recess.
We're not
Oh,
adjourning.
we're in recess.
We're
Thank
going
you.
into recess, so we don't actually need a motion for this.
Okay.
Because we're just going to go into recess, and then we're going to reconvene at 1 o'clock. Maybe Carrie, I might move that to 1:10. Is that all right?
That's fine.
With that. 1:10, let's say. We'll all meet up for the CAO interviews there at the Bill Luxfer studio.
Okay, we'll see
you.
ya.
So we are in recess until 1:10. Thank you.